What is happening, everybody? My name is Azaroth, and welcome back to Firewatch. Now, this is probably the last video that I'm going to be doing on Firewatch, at least for a while, but while I was originally like, okay, beat the game, I'm going to put Firewatch to bed, and then I'm going to move on, I remembered the Firewatch audio tour, and I wanted to do this for a couple of reasons. The first one is, on the several channels I've had over the years, I haven't done a video on it, and, well, I've always been a behind-the-scenes guy, like, I'm not joking. When I transitioned from VHS to DVD, and, I mean, not that this matters, but I never even owned a DVD player, okay? I watched all my DVDs on my PS2, but I was, like, the only person I knew who actually was like, whoa, special features, what's this? This is cool. Like, every time I'd finish watching a movie, I would go straight to the special features. I was the weirdo who liked watching commentaries and stuff. But for video games anyway, at least that I've noticed, the games that I've played, there's not a lot of behind the scenes options. I remember one of my favorite things, and this is not related to this at all, but it just popped in my head. The Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, that is a mouthful. That you could do stuff throughout the game, and when you beat the game, or 100%, it's been a very long time since I played that, in my defense, but there was like a little museum you could walk through, like in the special features section, and it was just like, here's art style for this, or here's the art for this game, the models, behind the scenes drawing, whatever. I'm rambling far too much. Let's just get on to the damn audio tour. What am I watching for? Now, I will say this, I don't think I'm going to be doing a video on the free roam, because while I like that they included it, it's not, as I said in the main playthrough, this game's not like that big, so whatever. Let's get our special features on. As I said, I love behind the scenes, I don't care, plus game development honestly is more intriguing to me than film for several reasons, but like all of it's fascinating, bro, whatever. Now, I should have said this in the main menu, but, you know, me being my rambly self, I guess I spaced it. This game by itself is very dialogue-heavy, you know, as it is. But I'm probably not gonna say a whole lot throughout this playthrough, specifically because, A, I just did a playthrough of this literally yesterday, I played through the whole game. But because there's a lot of commentary and whatever with... Like this, for example. I'm not reading all this again. I'm not. You can get mad at me if you want for skipping through all these, but I literally read through this yesterday. And, well, it's not like I'm playing the game to play the game. I'm literally just doing things to do things here. Give me the backpack. Come on, let's go. Open elevator. See? Why is this here? Why is this in the parking garage? Okay, whatever. Yeah, give me a tape player. I'm actually really excited, only because it's actually been a really long time since
Hello there, welcome to the Firewatch audio...
Sorry, I thought Wait, hold on. Oh, is the subtitle? They don't have subtitle for the... Oh, never mind, sorry.
Tour. My name is Rich Summer. I voiced the character of Henry, the guy that you're currently controlling with those buttons there. And I'll be chatting with you in a little bit. Thanks for checking it out.
Okay. Yeah, sorry for pausing that. I thought they had sub... Maybe they do and I'm just being stupid, but I'm not worried about it. Yeah, I know. I love the dog, too. I love him just as much as anybody else, but we don't got time for this. We gotta get to special features. I need commentary. Something that's better than my own, please. I mean, I'm not complaining. At least we're out... Oh, so these things are just gonna jump scare you now. Okay, that's fine.
Hi, I'm Sean Vanneman. I wrote the bulk of 100% of this game.
Hey, I'm Jake Rodkin. I did a lot of level design, UI design, and worked with everyone on the story for Firewatch.
The game has this weird structure that Chris and I talk about in another tape. This is the first thing I wrote, was this opening of the game that jumps between Henry's life and the trip out to the woods. And I used a little product called Twine to do that, which you can download and use. It's just a very simple choose your own adventure tool the simplest way to program a video game that one can then share with friends and play.
I think we were worried that the team would sort of perceive Henry as a blank slate, as sort of a generic game player protagonist, and we wanted to make sure, or we wanted to get in everyone's mindset, you're playing as a specific guy with a specific life.
Yeah, there's a reason when you play video games that a lot of your protagonists have amnesia, because it's really difficult when you're driving a character around who knows things about their life, or his or her life, that you, who you ostensibly are that person, don't know. So, yeah, we kept trying to write an opening of the game that happened sort of like weeks into Henry's experience, and then quickly realized that it was like, well, why would he not be able to say X? Well, because his relationship with his wife is Y. So, but the player doesn't know that. Yeah. And this was the quickest way to get everybody on board, was to just take the thing that I wrote that answered the question, I think, for Jane and you at the beginning, which was like, who is Henry? And I would write these character profiles that were really bad. And then I went, what if I just let you play a thing? And then you can figure out who he is. And we held on to that until we had the idea to put into the game.
It means that when you're playing Firewatch and Henry and Delilah start talking about Henry's wife, you don't have to learn it through his dialogue, because you made the choices that brought him where he is today.
So, hold on. I'll cut it out. I'm not going to bore you guys with it, but I have to see if there's subtitles for this. It's driving me crazy. Yeah, I couldn't find anything. It literally just is showing the subtitles for, like, the actual game. So if there is, then I'm stupid. Let's move on. Come on.
Hi, it's Jake again.
Hey, I'm Chris.
Hey, Jake! How's it
Hey,
going?
Chris.
Hi there. I
Hi, Chris.
was a game designer and the music composer on Firewatch.
Nice.
So you're hearing now the first piece of interactive music that went into Firewatch. The first piece of music that actually...
Responds to what you're doing in the game?
Exactly, yeah. So this is a piece of music that's divided into technically 6 parts. And what's happening is, as you're playing through this introductory sequence, when you hit certain points in the narrative, it sends a signal to Wise, which is the name of the audio middleware we're using. And then when Wise gets that signal, it waits until the next sort of musically appropriate transition point. And then when it hits that, it smoothly transitions into the next section of music. And so it creates the effect that you're just listening to one big long piece of music that just happens to be timed very nicely
It just
to your
happens.
playthrough.
It just happens to get sadder and sadder at the exact rate that your life gets sadder and sadder.
Yeah, exactly. This was a challenging process, both because I had no idea what the music should sound like, and also because it was the first interactive piece of music in the game. So the technical sort of just how does this work was also a part of it. But as it turned out, this music was changed. I mean, Jake, you may remember this. This music changed relatively little over the course of development in comparison to a lot of.
I think it started off as maybe 3 pieces and it expanded out to 5 over development. But other than that, it's one of the first things dropped in, shipped. Get ready to hear about that a lot on this commentary.
You know, I'm being serious, though. Like, I know I was talking about it in the beginning, but, like, I was, like, the only 9-year-old I can think of, the only 10-year-old I can think of, that, like, even my mother was tripped out about it. She'd be like, hey, you watching a movie? I'm like, yeah, I'm listening to the commentary. It's like, the director's commentary. The writer's there, too, but I'm trying to listen to... Hey, I wanted to be a filmmaker when I was a kid, alright? So, like, I literally ran around the house and my neighborhood with one of them handheld cameras recording everything. Like, I'd make little movies, little 4 or 5 minute movies. They were terrible. They were atrocious. They do not exist anymore, thank God. I'm just saying. I didn't do it! Oh, fuck, I made that joke last time. Oops. Yeah, I know. Take the job. Let's go. Let's meet Delilah. Now, because it's been years since I've done this, I'm gonna have to see it because I don't want this to get in the way of something and, like, make this hard to watch. Well, harder than it normally is because, you know, I am here. I want to see how this interacts with the talking. Like, if Delilah's gonna overtalk, like, if she's louder than it, whatever. Because one would think they thought that through, but I'm just saying that I want to be able to get through the game at a decent pace here, so, like...
I'm Nels Anderson, and I was a designer and gameplay programmer on Firewatch.
Yellow.
I'm Jane Ng, and I worked on the 3D environment art in Firewatch.
So, you're likely standing at the base of your home away from home. Your home in the wilderness. for all intents and purposes, more or less, this is basically just a real straight-up tower like they existed out in the woods, right?
Yeah, I think it is Portland. There's somebody in Portland who was very good about archiving a lot of blueprints about various type of fire lookouts of the state, and we got some, and that's how we started off building the Firewatch. The lookout tower, just by looking through how they were actually built.
It's slightly taller than a real one, right?
We had to make quite a bit of adjustments because, for example, the stairway you see here, normally fire lookout stairways are not on the outside, but for more interesting gameplay and views for the player, we opted to change that. But ultimately we still wanted the tower to feel like a real tower, so we had to figure stuff like, hey, how does the plumbing actually work? How do they get water? Stuff like that. It actually is very important for a real tower.
And if you go look around the base of the tower, you will actually see a big old plastic cistern.
We are not a survival game of any sort, but it is important to make sure that all that stuff is actually thought out, so the space feels realistic.
Right. You don't want someone playing the game being like, wait a minute, there's no how does this guy drink? How is he not dead?
When I normally play video games, I'm always interested in stuff like, hey, where's the bathroom? Here we have the outhouse and you can go anywhere, but stuff like water is very important. So in a real fire lookout situation, what they do is they will use a cistern, and they will capture rainwater from the roof, and you will actually see that we actually have a little pipe down from the roof, and we even have what they call a first flush filter being there, which is actually what they use.
That's my favorite kind of filter, really.
I had to look up what do they do, because once you go, okay, you collect rainwater from the roof, it won't be all nasty, and then hey, somebody already figured that out on how to collect rainwater. What do you know?
We actually visited a number of different lookout towers as we were researching the game, and it was always very satisfying to see elements of things we saw in the real world and make their way back into the game, and vice versa.
So we also made sure to have a tab here, like a little faucet, where you can actually get water from the cistern.
Yeah, if you click on it, it will play an animation of a hand gripping a knob and water comes out for 2 seconds. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But it's there.
I think for a while we actually were thinking should we just let the player turn on the water, or then what happens if the water just runs out? And then James had a very good idea of just going just make one animation that you turn on the faucet and turn it off immediately, just so that hey, there's water in here and you won't die. That's Henry.
Listen, it is quieter than the behind the scenes fun, happy, good fun times. I don't know what I was trying to say there, but you could hear it just enough that it was bugging me, so that's why. Also, how the hell could I still hear this from the bottom of the tower? This is a loud radio.
Hello?
Hello!
It's Henry, right?
No, it's Hank.
I'm Delilah.
Hi,
Yeah,
Dee.
that's what the guy said on the phone.
I'm going this way. I don't know what I'm doing
So
anymore.
what's wrong with you?
A lot
Excuse
of
me?
things.
People take this job to get away from something. So what's wrong?
What's wrong with you?
That's a great idea. Go ahead.
Look, I just hiked for 2 days, so I don't really follow whatever it is you're doing right now.
You take a stab at what's wrong with me.
Fine,
Okay.
then can I sleep forever?
Sure, buddy. Okay, now go ahead.
So, any of these options I'm going to pick, I picked this last time, so anytime I get a chance to pick something new, even if it's a dickish option, this isn't the real playthrough, so why not?
Okay, you're probably out here because nobody back home can stand you. Which, after this brief introduction, is not a big shock.
Ouch. I'll chalk that up to you being tired and grumpy.
Well, I'd better get some sleep then.
I'm sorry.
One sec. Now it's my turn.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, good night, bye.
Let's see. I don't know anything about you, but 9 times out of 10, folks out here simply got dumped.
Well, is that it?
Close?
Good night.
Good night. Welcome to the job.
As I'm literally just running around outside in the wilderness, just I want to go to bed. Will you shut up and let me sleep? This is a long hike. Ah! Okay. Now, I'm gonna try... I don't know what I'm doing here. I want to just progress forward, but I'm worried
Good morning, Henry.
that the overlap in the thing is going to get
You
annoying.
slept like a rock. Anyway,
Yes.
there's still a few hours of daylight to get some work in. I can see you at your desk, so call me when you're ready.
You got it, boss.
Nels, it feels like you on the team did the most sort of digging about what the real job is like, what is in the actual space, and then checked us against reality when we kind of went off the reservation.
I mean, in general, I really like doing research. That's sort of a thing I've enjoyed on all the projects I've worked on. So for this, a bunch of folks on the team read this great book called Fire Season by Philip Connors, which is kind of like a memoir-ish thing from this dude who still is an active fire lookout even today. But I also just, I called up the Ministry of Forests and Natural Resources here in British Columbia and got redirected to like 3 increasingly small Ministry of Forest offices until someone just gave me literally the phone number of this cool old lady who had once been a fire lookout. So I just kind of chatted with her for like an hour and a half just about what doing the job was like. The reason why the game is not a simulation of being a fire lookout is because what everyone talks about is that the number one challenge with the job is that it is incredibly, impossibly boring.
Because you can't, like, read a book. You can't, like, be doing other things, right? Like,
Not really.
Yeah.
At the end of day 3, where Delilah mentions it's like, Kenny's like, well, what do I do for the rest of the summer? She's like, you sit in that chair and you look out the window. That is actually what fire lookouts really do. So all the folks I talked to said, like, figuring out ways to combat boredom is the number one thing. The lady I talked to, she said she did a whole lot of needlepoint and cross stitch because
Sorry if it's
you can
annoying.
do
I
that
don't know
without
what else to
looking
do
at your
here.
hands very much. Obviously, like, lookouts are also responsible for doing, maintenance on their towers. But again, it's like not maintenance because some crazy Yahoo smashed up your tower. It's maintenance like, oh, the paint is kind of flaking off, better paint it. Or these trees have grown too tall, so I need to chop them down. Not, I'm chopping down trees to form a weird log bridge.
The main takeaway from whenever we would talk to someone who had done this job is, why would you make a game about that? That is the most boring time of my entire life. So hopefully we showed them how.
It feels like people who do this job like fall into 2 camps, right? They're the people who think they can do it and can't hack it and bail after like a month or 2. People like Jack Kerouac, who tried to do this and wrote about it in Desolation Angels, and then he went crazy from a lack of cigarettes and then left. Or the people who kind of enjoy the solitude and then figure out ways to deal with it. But we do have like a lot of the window dressing for the stuff people use. Like other folks I talk to, it's like, what do you do? Well, we read a lot of books, and we like trade the books between the different lookouts through rangers and stuff like that. So of course, Firewatch has a crap ton of weird books in it. Stuff like that.
It's actually that for all of them.
Okay.
Smart.
Shut up.
Welcome. Yeah, see, that one I just walked by, I don't remember if they reset. I'm actually gonna have to, like, read these to make sure I don't get the same thing twice. Okay.
Chris again here.
Hey, and Jake, congratulations, player. You have completed the teen loop.
Oh man, that's true. This is the end of what was
No,
originally called.
I was supposed to get this at the end, wasn't I?
A scene file in our game engine Unity, because we thought that was just going to be the file corresponding to the first
this piece of game that you've just played.
Yeah, this first big objective.
But then we kept building, so all of Firewatch is in fact saved inside of a file called teenloop.unity. So
Yep, the
know that
entire
for the
game.
rest of your play experience, you are inside of the teen loop.
Yeah. This
Good to
part
know.
of the game, you probably are right
Getting
now
hurt.
if you're listening to these commentary notes basically in sequence. The music is either about to kick in or has just kicked in. It's dark. You're finding your tower's been broken into. This, I really strongly remember feeling when this went into the game and had the music, which was actually the first music implemented in the entire game. All this stuff together felt to me like the first real moment of assertive tension in the game, and it felt really crazy.
Yeah, because we
to me.
had our environment system working for the first time, so the sky turned to nighttime,
Yep.
and our world logic allowed the tower to switch into its broken into state just when you were off in the world for the first time. And then when that music finally came in, we're like, oh, wow, okay, this is a world that's alive and can be tense and cinematic.
Yep.
And all of it happened without us ever having to cut the camera. I remember we were all very proud and stoked of that.
For sure.
That was like right before we first demoed the game, I think, at the Penny Arcade Expo.
Yeah, because the end of day one was the end of the first demo.
Yeah.
Right before this, there's the moment with the creepy guy in the woods, and that was sort of a moment of tension. But that's also arguably maybe not, because it's immediately deflated by Delilah.
Right, but this you're like,
was like,
holy crap.
Okay, I remember feeling kind of nervous about it because it was like the game is declaring this is a tense moment, and if it falls flat, we have failed. We can't like make a joke to diffuse it. And I think it basically worked, and it was a real relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, okay, I like these guys. Okay, see, I forgot that there actually was, like, specific ones with each day. Like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. I should know it. I'm gonna try my best, but also don't expect me to get all of them. Yeah, listen, I'm gonna double check. Yeah, hold on. No. Okay, well, I guess my question will be answered in about 2.5 seconds here. Maybe. Where's the other one? Because, see, this is going to answer this right now. So if I did that... Wait, where the hell is... Yeah, because that is... Well, you know what? If this bites me in the butt, then I'll just edit it out. It's fine.
Hey, it's Jake again.
And it's Jane again.
All right, let's talk about Two Forks Lookout. I mean, we could just talk about lookout towers in general in video games. Well, you built it. You want to talk about it?
Yes. So lookout towers have standard sizes, actually. I think most of these were either 14 feet by 14 feet in the inside, or something like 7. Like there's actually
like
a
tiny.
standard.
Wow.
Yeah, the cabins have standard sizes, and the ones that you have a bed and stay in are the 14 feet ones. And we realized through a few experiments that if you make a space that's actually 14 feet in the game, it would be too tiny.
Yeah, I remember you found a lookout tower enthusiast website that had posted the actual blueprints that the State Parks and Forest Service used. So we're like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
We're building it to scale.
Yes.
It's tiny. You can't move around.
It's tiny, and then basically the camera just has no room to maneuver at all.
Yeah, and you just feel like a fat guy, like you can't fit between your desk and the firefighter.
Yeah, and it feels like you're just in a shoebox. So we did a few experiments. I was like, okay, how about it's twice as big? And when it's twice as big, and it's just like no.
Palatial fire lookout cribs.
And then like on the outside, the silhouette of the space also looks wrong. So we ended up with I think something like 1.5 size bigger than real life, and it feels like a real fire lookout.
Over the course of the game, as things change, there's a bunch of variants of the tower too, right? I mean, simple stuff like the broken window, but then also we move furniture around. Henry gets moved in over the time.
Yeah, there are different states of the interior, and we achieved that by actually swapping out the whole interior set. Like 7 or 8 times, I think.
A lot of times.
As the game moves on, then more and more of his stuff starts showing up, and then Henry is a slob, and so his like undies are everywhere and all
window
this stuff.
Gets broken, window gets fixed,
Exactly.
Conspiracy board goes up. Yeah, and dirty socks get all over the place. Just tell the story of some slobby dude up here.
Exactly.
The radio went on a real evolutionary journey. I don't know if you remember back at the very beginning when we all got together to make the game. We got together in December, like the first week of December, and we said, well, we're definitely going to take Christmas break, but what can we make in 2 weeks with this crew in Unity, an engine we've never used before? And we started starting with the radio mechanic, and I quickly wrote like a mystery about an FBI agent looking for a kidnapper in the woods, and then you had like a dispatcher who was like, go to this place and look for this. Oh, I think he left. And I think that's when we sort of proved out that looking at things and pointing at them the way you would like in a shooter, but then getting options to talk about them was the thing we were going to do.
That's kind of where the radio mechanic is so different from most conversation systems in games, right? Because most game conversations, it's like, oh, you're standing next to this guy, so you can talk to him now, and you will be able to talk about things that have recently happened to you. But since it's a radio, it's like you could be anywhere, anytime, talking about whatever you're looking at. So even as we started to like do that initial prototyping, we sort of realized like, oh, that's very interesting. Also, this is really complicated and very different from how most games do dialogue.
Yeah, when you're standing in front of a character, you just sort of have the very binary rule of, I am standing in front of a character in an adventure game, I can talk. I walk away, I can't. When you change that up and you can talk about things wherever because the proximity to that character is no longer relevant, you start to find really weird cases. Like, what do you do when you want to talk about an idea or a sound you just heard, a smell? So then we had to sort of bring the radio mechanic into the realm of the intangible. And I don't think that really came on until much later.
Yeah, we got I think during that prototype we got the very initial vestiges of it, but in that initial prototype it was so simple where it's like, oh, if you're looking at this weird stone head, you can push the one button to play this crappy audio top of "Oh hi Mark" from Tommy Wiseau's The Room, or you can push 2 to say "Oh hi Denny" instead.
That was the darkest time of development for me.
It was the most wonderful time
because that movie gives me real physical illness. When we had mapped the radio mechanic to 2 lines from The Room, I was in a bad way about that.
I enjoyed it greatly.
I know you did. I know you did.
Yes.
Okay, well, I was not expecting, The Room to be referenced, but I approve.
Hi there, it's Jake.
And Chris again.
Hey, so here we are in the cache box clearing, or at least I guess that's what we call it. There's a lot of cache boxes in Firewatch, but this was the first one that we placed into the game.
For a long time, this was the cache box.
It was the cache box, even though we knew we wanted to have more. This area was actually one of the first areas that we've built out to any degree that looks like a piece of the world. It was a really good proving ground for us. When me and Nels Anderson were greatboxing the world at the very beginning, we tried a million different things, maybe this was on the edge of a cliff, or maybe it was a secret that you had to find. And I think it was Sean who suggested that he really wanted it to feel like a warm, sort of enclosed space, like you've stumbled onto a little glen and you want to stay there for a while, which I think makes sense because we wanted people to actually stop and poke around and have it not feel like the woods.
This was an area with a lot of firsts. I remember this really ended up looking a lot like Ollie's concept art in a way I think that felt like an accomplishment when it all got built out. It was also the first audio I implemented in the entire game, I believe.
The Foley on the locks and the lid?
Right, exactly.
Oh, this was also, the cache box was also our proving ground for detailed object interaction with Henry animating the lock. And also, there's an exit out if you back up and turn left. That was the first time I prototyped one-way drops and also any sort of secret paths, because the way that you cross the canyon also showed up here, and I didn't tell anyone on the team about it for months, and people only noticed it once they started playing the back half of the game, and it was very fulfilling for me.
Nice.
Cache box.
Cache box, land of firsts and secrets.
That's the state flag of cache boxes.
I'm not going to comment on that. All right, next one.
Jake.
Oh, hey, Sean.
You did a neat thing here in the game that I like a lot, which is when you make a dialogue choice with Delilah about what this dangerous hill should be called. It shows up on your map, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, when we were putting the map system together, well, actually, the map weirdly was one of the final things to come into the game as a fully fleshed out piece. But an upside of that is we built the map using a lot of tools we already had. For instance, the system that checks which things you haven't talked about, which things you haven't found in the game. Use the same variable list as our speech system. So when I was putting this together, I realized, not only can I put a mark down on the map when Henry finds it or talks about it, but I can totally look at the same tools we use for dialogue and figure out what the player said and put it on the map. And the end result felt really natural. I actually wish we'd gone a little deeper on it in the game, but I'm really happy with what's in there right now. Also, please name this shitty boss is going to get me killed, because that's objectively the best name for this.
Yes, it is.
Is that your handwriting?
Yeah, you got to cram that in there, but it's still readable.
What exactly happened?
My rope snapped coming down the shale slide.
You didn't break anything, did you?
No, I think I'll make it.
Be careful, for Christ's sake.
Okay. Also, because I didn't look, even though I don't even know if you have the map technically in that like first time, like it actually like lets you start playing, but because I forgot about like it shows you like this is how many stops you have today, and you have to find exactly this many, and you know whatever. That I hope I got all the ones in the first thing. Also, I'm just trying to make sure that's that one, right? Okay, I just had to make sure. All right, cool.
Hi, this is Ollie Moss, and I was the art director on Firewatch.
I'm Jane.
Hi, Jane.
Let's talk about this teen
let's
party
talk about
zone.
this. Let's talk about the teen zone. So the teen zone is one of the first areas that we used as a sort of art test to see how we would go about building the rest of the game.
We knew from the pretty early on that, like, on day one, you will start from the tower, and you will have to head down to the lake, and somewhere in between, you will see some teens, and they're partying. And so we called this the teen zone because this is where all the teen stuff is.
Yeah, and it was important to us that the reveal that it was a group of teens was communicated through the level design. So the idea was that you just kind of like walk through some trees and burst out into this scene where a campfire was still burning.
And you had a pretty strong idea of what you wanted to look like.
Yeah, I just wanted to put some big angular rocks in there, which is basically the like my modus operandi for the entire game. But we wanted to have a big angular sort of rock, which became known as Pride Rock because it looked so much like the rock from The Lion King.
We did name that Pride Rock, didn't we? That rock does serve as a very strong landmark pretty early in the game, and it kind of does point the player in the right direction.
Exactly. Should we talk a little bit about our process for designing these areas?
So in the beginning, when we just have like no concept art, we will just walk it out with just literally just gray boxes and a gray terrain. And then we will take screenshots and give it to Ollie to be like, please pretty this up, Ollie.
Oh, well, first of all, I'll do a terrible garbage sketch and pitch it to the team. And if people like the gist of it, then we'll go away and do a bit more of a detailed drawing, and then you would go.
Yeah, we'll add in some more shapes, and then we just keep going back and forth with paint overs from Ollie.
And then it's just a sort of tennis, really, just back and forth between the two of us until everyone's happy with what we have.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know those.
Go okay?
It went fine. Hopefully
got
there
it.
won't be any more trouble.
Good. Thanks for going down there.
Yep. And like I said, if you guys get mad at like the way I'm doing it, like I literally just did the correct full playthrough yesterday. Like, this guy's playing this game wrong. I'm just having a little bit of fun right now. That's it. What's going on?
My name is Patrick Ewing. I worked on tools and gameplay programming.
The teens, Patrick.
Let's open some old wounds here.
This is like going back to like an old battleground and being like on these hollowed grounds.
Yeah,
bad
I died on this hill.
Happened. I died on this hill.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the most complex interactions in the game, if not the most, right?
Yeah.
And it was in the game from the very first vertical slice we did, and then I think we kind of added to it as we played through it and saw like, oh, we should be able to throw the boombox in the lake, obviously, right? Okay, the teens need to react to the boombox being in the lake. Oh, but then they should also react to you putting it down.
What you should do if you're making a video game is build relatively ironclad, predictable AI and systems that react to inputs, but instead we built a series of relatively flimsy state machines that were like, if this, but not when, and also if.
Right.
And we're able to create this scene as designed. And Patrick was sort of the shepherd of this scene, so whenever anything would break, if you were to throw the boombox and the teens were not to respond, or you leave with the boombox and they would talk about something else, it was Patrick's job to ferret into the state machine and figure out what was going on.
Yeah, and I'm happy with how it turned out. There are so many different ways that this scene can play out now, depending on what you choose to do. Do you throw the fireworks at them? Do you talk to them and then start messing up their stuff and throwing it in? And it ends up being pretty like believable. They feel like real characters. It's just such a crazy spaghetti code in the in the back end that I'm always terrified when I see someone play through it, that there's
You're
some
so
interaction
You're
that we
so
didn't think
afraid
about.
that right
yeah.
now the player is interacting with the teens in a way that is completely not by the book, and
I mean, luckily we
beads of
haven't.
sweat or building on your brow.
Yeah, I think it's just a PTSD response at this point. We would see the bug reports if this was actually still breakable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 100% fair. Like, I can't even judge that.
Hello, my
Hey!
name is Erin Yvette, and I'm the voice of Chelsea.
Hi, my name is Nikki Rapp, and I'm the voice of Lily.
And we're the drunk teens in the lake.
You did a great
The
job.
obnoxious, skinny dipping, drunk, firework blasting teens.
I see why you were
This
cast.
isn't the first time that you've played a Lily, though.
It is not. It's actually the third time I've played a Lily.
Actually.
My first Lily was
God.
Lily Zanotto in Psychonauts. And then I played the lovable Lily in The Walking Dead from Telltale. And now I'm Lily in Campos Santos' amazing game Firewatch.
I'm pretty sure the backstory behind my character's name is that it's Sean Vanneman's girlfriend's name. Slightly less
That's
backstory
pretty
for me
rad,
personally,
though.
but she's a cool person in real life, so it's fine. Although I wouldn't
good.
say that this character is based off of her, because this character is, I guess I always pictured her being changing majors constantly in college because she like can't decide what she wants to do. Like she's gone through like psychology and sociology and like and just constantly flunking out of everything.
Yeah,
So she's
I
just
think-
switching until something sticks.
That's good you had ambition. I don't think my character really... I think she just was kind of drunk, cutting class.
This isn't the first time that they've done something like this.
Not at all. I think they were professionals at it. They were good. They were good at getting people to buy them booze, you know,
Totally.
that kind of a thing. That's good. Stand outside of 7-Eleven.
Whenever people ask me like, "Oh, who did you play in Firewatch?" It's like, "Oh, remember that time on day one where like you saw these silhouettes of like gyrating women? I was one of those. I
Yeah, there's,
probably
like,
called you a fucking
bras.
asshole." That was me.
That's a dubious honor, but it's still an honor.
Totally, yeah. A little tiny bit of a really cool game.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Jeez.
Hi, everyone. This is Ben Burbank. I'm a programmer at Campo Santo, predominantly doing graphics work and performance stuff. And I'm here with Jane.
Hi, I'm back.
And we're going to talk a little bit about, in general, how the world sort of streams in.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big open world game. There are, like, what, tens of thousands of trees somewhere in there?
Yeah, and we have how many chunks of the world that we stream in and out?
There are 100 plus.
Yeah, I think over 120.
One of the big challenges with that was we have to remove parts of it when you're not looking at it, because video game consoles and computers don't like to draw things that aren't seen.
Especially not a lot of trees.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for that little graphics card to do to try and draw all those that big forest. So the canyon's one of the spots where we have like obvious occlusion where you can't see most of the world. So we unload like the tower hub. The tower that you see in the canyon is fake. It's a small fake version.
Yeah.
Which is a common trick.
Yeah, so it's like a very low cost version of what it would actually be there.
One of the biggest challenges for Jane and people building the levels was figuring out line of sight. So how far can you see? Like if you have a point where you can see entirely across the map, we had to be very careful about what is actually loaded and what's actually drawing.
Yeah, so even though the canyon is pretty much a straight corridor, we had to put in some kinks in there. So, you know, like right sort of in the middle, there's a little area where you have to go around a rock. This is so that we could make sure you won't be looking at the lake when we basically delete it out of the world.
Yeah. The game also, you know, it's sort of non-linear. Like there's a linear story going on, but there's the ability for the player to just go backwards. So we also had to keep in mind like reverse line of sight and things like that, which is a little different than a traditional action game or something.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little puzzle game almost to figure out when we stream in and out things. So hopefully you don't notice any of it, because if you do, that's actually us not doing a great job.
You probably will notice it though sometimes. I'm sorry about that.
No, sorry, I did that joke already. Okay, what was it doing? Okay.
Hi, Hi, I'm Jane. We're back.
And I'm Ollie.
Let's talk about this cave, Ollie.
Oh, let's not.
This cave really gave us all quite a bit of headache, actually. I was actually kind of having a mini panic attack because one of the hardest things to light in games actually is any area that's sort of half indoor and half outdoor, and this cave is a pain in the butt to light.
It is. Well, having we thought you'd be an old pro at this, having worked on a game called The Cave. But yeah, it caused a lot of problems in terms of the logic gating of the environment switches, because every time the time of day changes in the game, it then like sets that time of day.
Because there's no doorway really.
So the way the cave is lit, it actually just changes the time of day in the whole game. So like when you hit a trigger, if you could somehow magically transport yourself back outside the cave, you'd see like the sun spinning through the sky, the sky changing, and it was really hard to make that process invisible to the player and make it feel natural.
Not to mention that when you're inside the cave, everything also has to look really dark. And we use a method called image-based lighting throughout the game. And that basically means that all the objects, like all the trees and rocks, just look out to the sky to see what their lighting should be. And so in the cave, we actually had to do sort of like a fake sky for anything inside that is just pure black. So the lighting inside would be appropriately dark.
But still navigatable to a player without the flashlight.
Exactly. And also to be able to have a smooth transition when you're going from the brightly lit outside to the really dark inside and coming back out again and having all the appropriate logic for the time of day, like Ollie said, it was just a real pain in the butt.
Really upset that I got that one.
I love the little
earlier.
details in Firewatch's branching dialogue. There are a lot of very subtle, hard to notice things that Sean put in while writing it that you really couldn't notice without multiple playthroughs, but they add up to this feeling that you're talking to real people who, just like real people, kind of echo back things you said earlier, who continue in jokes that have been established, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the subtlest that I don't think I even noticed till I was rewiring the game midway through is the spooky figure who you meet towards the end of the day.
Spooky figure. If the teens call you a creep, Henry calls the guy who's putting a flashlight in his face a creep.
Right.
He goes, "There's some guy out here creeping," or he says something like, "He's a creep out here." She's like, "A creep, Henry." He's like, "Yeah, there's a guy who's spooking me out here. I don't like it." And I mean, I like doing stuff like that. I pay a lot of attention to the sort of infectiousness of language.
Yeah.
Especially in this office, someone will start using a turn of phrase that then I'll be at lunch with someone later, or I'll be out with Jake or whatever, and then I'll hear the phrase
theory crafting
through them, where it's like, like if somebody was saying, "Oh, there was a total creep outside at the bus stop," then it wouldn't be long, like 18 hours later, it would be totally conceivable to hear Jake be like, "Oh yeah, that guy's kind of a creep. I don't know if we should have him by or whatever."
Yep.
And I'd be like, "Man, okay, like that word is now like bubbling along the surface of our social network here." And people are like that. People are weird, sort of like passive, like non-participatory sponges sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just like putting that stuff in the writing. And you can do that in games in a way that you can't do that in other media. If you do that in like a book or something, it's so double underlined that it feels like you're making a big point as an author. But in a game, because it's player driven and it's passive, it just feels causal and the way the world works.
Forest Service know what happened.
Yeah, scared, Delilah. You don't know. Guy broke into my tower. Help! Sorry. I got everything, right? I got all my thingamajigs. I know this is like the millionth time I've checked, but I'm actually shocked they don't have a thing for Hawk's Rest. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have any idea who would have done this?
Nope.
Maybe that guy I saw in the canyon, but I don't know why the fuck he'd want to mess with my stuff.
Well, I'll have the Rangers keep an eye out for a man hiking on his own and question him if they find him.
Can we go to the next day, please?
I can't believe someone would do this. I worry about bears and fires, and that's about it. And now I've got to worry about some deranged hiker going after lookouts? Great. Okay, in the morning I'm gonna call my friend Patty, who works the desk down in Cody. They keep a list of everyone who's officially been in and out of the trailhead since, I don't know, forever, and see if we can get a list of names. We won't get much, but at least if anything else happens, we can refer to it and see if anything comes up.
Thanks.
I need you to feel safe out here.
I don't! There's serial killers out here! Okay, sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, you can protect yourself, huh?
Yep.
I just don't worry about it.
Perfect. Keep that attitude up and you'll have an excellent summer.
Okay, well, now that I officially know how this works now, and, like, it all came back to me, this should go by a little bit faster, because, like I said, I knew that there was a couple of things that were on specific days, but I didn't realize that they actually just, like, properly spaced them out, so at least I got somewhat of a... Matt! I'm awake! Yes!
Hey, wake up.
What's the problem?
I'm awake. What's your problem?
Our problem.
Sorry, our problem.
That storm knocked out the phone line I used to talk to the service, which means we're cut off. I tried radioing.
Hey, I'm Chris.
And I'm Sean, and day one ended abruptly. A lot of games don't do that structurally.
Yeah.
You sort of get to an end point, you touch a flag, or you continue on infinitely with no cuts.
Right.
Cuts are very rare in games that have sort of a...
First-person games especially.
Yeah.
The idea for that came from the movie Dallas Buyers Club.
So interesting.
I know. I remember so specifically seeing the first time that movie cuts to a day title card, where you learn that the Matthew McConaughey character has diagnosed with AIDS and essentially given 30 days to live, and then it cuts and it says day one. And it was that was like a gut punch when you see that because of what it implies. And I was like, oh man, our game is set in basically a limited amount of time. And there's like this tense thing that happens that makes it, it's not as though there's like a specific date that's coming up, but there is like tension now that exists. Also, we had to figure out just how to get around the fact that we had a big open world and needed to tell a linear story, and so I just came in the next day and pitched that idea based on that movie.
Yeah, and we all just thought it was like stylish and interesting and solved so many problems, so we did it.
Ended up creating a lot more problems, but I think it worked overall.
Yeah, it's great.
Hey, it's Oli again. And Jake.
Hey, Jake.
So I feel that we're right now in close proximity to Forrest Byrnes.
I think the idea for Byrnes came around when we realized that Smokey the Bear was not a public domain figure, and we realized, but also something that people associate really closely, the idea of a mascot with wilderness parks.
Right. So what if we created something far worse than Smokey the Bear?
What if we made something horrifying and strange? And the original idea was that as the game kind of built up, you'd find these Forrest Byrnes posters that would get gradually more sinister and be this sort of like externalization of Henry's inner paranoia sort of creeping in. But
that did not happen.
We didn't do that. We just made a wacky character and stuck him in the game.
I think there's one of the Forrest Byrnes posters survives in a couple places. Like Delilah's Tower at the end has the Forrest Byrnes Can Dig It poster. But the one that says "Snuff It Out" with him holding a match
does not appear in the game.
The face of a child. Yeah, it's not there.
No, that's out.
Yeah, I know. Even up until the moment that Forrest Byrnes went into the game, I feel like there was a hesitance from the team to include him in the game. But I went in just to put him in. You like rogue modeled the Forrest Byrnes stand-up, and then right before the GDC demo, I put him on the back of the outhouse. Yes. And then it turns out that he was really fun. Fun Forrest Byrnes fact: for a while, you could use him as a physics object, and then we've discovered that you could like surf Forrest Byrnes and use him to get to inaccessible areas. So you can no longer do that, unfortunately.
That's much to my chagrin.
Yeah, surf Byrnes down the shale slide, not allowed. Anyway, that's him. Enjoy him. Yep. Use him well.
No, Byrnes is terrifying. I mean, I'm still salty at what happened at the end of the last video, because I legitimately... I don't know why I thought I could take him with me. Also, did I pass? No. There. Oh, yeah, that's there. I don't know why I'm just now starting to realize that, like, some of these are just in the same spot, and it's, like, a lot easier to... Okay, well... Also, that way is one of their false shortcuts. That did not help me at all. Are you guys gonna talk about the call? Is that what's gonna happen? I don't want to hear that. Let's go. Come on.
Hey, it's Chris again.
And Sean.
Hey.
Hey.
So the conversation that you may be hearing or may be coming up soon has Delilah taking a call from another lookout. Unbeknownst to her, Henry can hear this all happening. And when she finishes that call, you as the player can choose to call her on it or not call her on it. And that was a very interesting piece of writing and design, I think.
Yeah, I really loved the idea we had here, and I love the way it is performed, but I feel like I especially would add something to it if I were to go back into the game and noodle around. It was this is a kind of a confusing call for people, and I'm sure if it was for you, you'll understand why, which is that people get really hung up on the fact that Delilah takes this mysterious call, and then it's never sort of like overtly explained that she's just doing her job. She's just literally just talking to someone else. And the lens through which you hear it is 100% just Henry's paranoia. But I feel like that could have been underscored here way more had I let you, the player, like find a nuanced middle ground and sort of pry at her about what that call was without freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
If you call her on it, Henry gets very, very defensive. And while I think that goes to illustrate the fact that Henry doesn't have a lot of capacity for nuance and middle ground because he's so damaged and bummed to be in the situation he's in, I feel like he kind of did players a disservice by not letting them feel out the relationship and a potential mystery early on.
I think that dated from an earlier revision of the game in which we were barreling towards more of a hard break between Henry and Delilah.
Yes.
And this was maybe just one thing that didn't quite get that last tweak.
Yeah. But I still like the scene,
Me too.
nevertheless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I briefly talked about it in my first playthrough. Well, not really my first playthrough, but like the video from yesterday. That's what I loved about that radio call is the fact that it's literally just, a normal conversation, and Delilah's like she's just doing her job. That's it. But it put pretty much every player, myself included, in an uproar. Like, what the hell? What the hell is going on? What is this game? What is she hiding? Tell me, woman! And it's like, it's literally just because it made Henry paranoid. That's it. That's genius.
Hi, Ollie.
Hi, Sean.
It's nice that we're doing a tape together.
I know, is this the first one?
It's our first and only one.
Oh, that's a shame.
I feel like we've done so much together not on tape. At least not recorded in a way that you know about.
Okay.
And here we are talking about Hawk's Rest.
Hawk's Rest.
You concepted this area quite a
Yeah,
bit.
the idea was that it would seem from the outside a sort of innocuous little house on the edge of a cliff, much like your own lookout, but when you open the door you get the surprise that it's being burnt away and you just see a vista and sort of rush of wind as you open that door, and I thought that would be a really fun reveal to the player.
Yeah, and I sort of screwed it up when I first wrote this scene because all of these sort of Hawk's Rest dialogue and all the stuff about Raccoon Carter was as you were walking up the hill, you could report the cabin, which was a lookout tower, at the top of the hill, and then get into this story about its former inhabitant as you were approaching it, and then it sort of buried the moment in a way. So we took all that stuff out, and I hacked in very inelegantly, I think, that Delilah just doesn't answer you when you ask her about what the house at the top of the hill is. And then you get to experience it alone before getting the story about Raccoon Carter. And I'm really happy with the way that worked out. Also,
there's a secret.
But the raccoon that lives in the stove that you may or may not know about is only there on certain days because of a myriad of design reasons. But if you're here on any day that isn't day 2 and you open that stove, there's a little critter in there. And that was animated by James, textured by Ollie, drawn by Ollie. I really like that raccoon, Oliver.
Thanks, Sean.
You did a very nice job on that raccoon. Also, you did a very nice job on the rest of the game, and I'm only going to tell you that on the Hawk's Rest tape. I'm actually going to edit this out. I don't want anyone hearing me ever compliment you.
Fantastic.
In the record, but because it's around taped together. But yeah, I really love the way this area came together.
It's lovely. Lovely the way it is. Very nice. Well done.
That's so lovely. Well done.
Hey, it's Jake again.
Hey, Jake.
Mark's here.
So is there anything style-wise that you had to consider on this game as opposed to doing work in like I don't know, a lot of the other stuff you've done is probably more AAA in scope.
Yeah, I mean, my previous work, I've done a lot more just ridiculous, over-the-top Hollywood-type blood squibs and explosions and laser beams and that kind of jazz. So it was neat to just sort of like stop and think about what the relevant effects to walking around a national park would be.
Right.
Just sort of ambient, natural, secondary motion that you would want in the world without it being obnoxiously overpowered as most things you would do for a AAA action game.
You know, the entire world looks hazy and covered in smoke as the fire gets closer and closer, and obviously we couldn't just fill the entire world with smoke because everyone's graphics card would melt and it would also look like a big pile of garbage. So it seems like you and Paolo, who did a lot of the sort of programming side of this, ended up inventing this thing that the team called the Henry Smoke Barfer, which
I do think Nels actually coined that one, but yeah,
it was probably Nels.
Yeah, it's a very Nels thing to say.
Yeah, Henry at this point in the game is wandering around with basically a pigpen cloud around him. When you see the sparks flying around on day 79 or the sort of lingering haze on days 77 and 78, that's actually just Henry's body emitting those, then leaving them behind in the trail.
I made up a group of emitters that rotate around the watchtower that, you know, if you look real closely, you could probably make it out, but it gives that sort of feeling of it's super intensely smoky outside without
you're in the middle of this big swirling storm, but actually it's just, 6 feet of smoke spinning around the outside of the building.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, this is the trailer I was talking about.
And
yes.
Hey, if you saw the second trailer for Firewatch, there's a moment that takes place here where Delilah points out that there's someone in Henry's tower. Henry points out that he's not there. Camera swings back to the tower, and it's a big dramatic ending. Of course, that moment happens in a completely different part of the map in the actual game and has totally unrelated to this moment that you're now experiencing.
And this was a trailer that we had debuted with Sony at E3, so we knew we had a big audience and that a lot of people were going to see it. It's really, really challenging. I mean, you all know, because everyone goes to movies, what it's like to watch a trailer for a movie that you're excited about and maybe have already decided to see and then be shown too much stuff.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, a movie either has like the ability to or sort of the chutzpah to just show you a scene that hit the cutting room floor or an alternate version of something that gets you feeling the way you should feel and excited for the movie as presented, but doesn't spoil it for you. And I think I'm really happy that we ended up doing that. I think it's good. Like, you're not lying. It's not like we showed you a mechanic that you can't do or anything like that.
I think that we basically had to find a way to accurately convey the type of tension and mood of the game without spoiling it. And so we basically ended up just writing those trailers to fit. I think it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they totally did. No, I was waiting because I'm actually doing this on purpose. I brought it up in the last video, and I want to see if I can't get it to happen. Because I think it's funny. Yeah, because if it doesn't happen, then I guess what I said in the last video, I'm just completely full of shit. But I swear it happens, guys. I swear. You should be like, I can see you leaving. What, did you find anything? And you're like, yeah. She freaks out at you because... it is so interesting going through all this again, though, and, like, listening to all the different...
I think I just saw you at the top of Beartooth Point. Was everything okay up there?
Nope, those drunk dumbasses cut the comms wire and left a pair of their whites as a calling card.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm gonna go find them.
Well, good. And also, why don't you call me the next time you find something like that?
Sorry.
I was just trying to be a self-starter.
Like, they really did think of everything, and don't get me wrong. This game was probably a bitch to make, but, at the same time, I think it turned out well.
Hi, it's Ben.
Oh, it's Jake. Hey, Ben. So let's talk about Henry's camera. Or, I guess, more specifically, the Goodwin family camera. We liked the idea of Brian and his dad bringing one of those little cardboard cameras out with them, and we had thought at various points in production, maybe we should cut taking photos because it's really complicated. Maybe you should just see the ones at the end in the credits and be shocked by the Goodwin family.
When I joined the project, I actually was super excited about this feature. I liked the idea of having the camera have a little bit of a real-world feel to it. People seem to like when you showed an animated GIF of it on Twitter. People went crazy remembering these things.
Especially once the idea was proposed that on PC you could print out your photos or you could upload them to the internet and get them developed, which is the thing that we do.
Yeah, the photos that we take are actually secretly 5 megapixel, first generation digital camera quality photos, but just good enough that if you print them out, they look okay.
Yeah, once we went all in on that as a concept, it seemed like having the camera in the game was an essential no-brainer, and then we went all in on making it work like a real camera. We really wanted, you'll have a fixed number of shots you can take. Every time you take a picture, Henry has to wind the camera by hand.
And some players ignore it and don't take pictures. They'll take the 2 that Delilah tells you to, and then the end credits will play and they'll see 2 pictures and maybe have a little feeling of loss that they didn't participate in that feature.
Yeah, or people who get super bummed because they get really into the mystery and take pictures of strange machines and ripped up campsites and a dead Brian Goodwin, and then get to the end credit sequence and go, oh, that was me.
Yeah, they only see the sad things.
I like
people win.
Depending on how much you use the camera and what you choose to take a picture of, you end up getting a different story at the end of the game. That's the thing that I think worked out the best with the camera and made me the happiest that we actually went all out on building this stupid thing.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Hey, Chris here.
And Patrick.
Hey, Patrick. So at this point in the game, we're starting off on the search for the teens. One big challenge we frequently had on Firewatch was figuring out how to guide players when the person giving you your current objective doesn't actually know where to send you. Delilah knows you need to find the teens, but neither of you have any idea where to start.
And in this case, we used telephone poles to get you up to Beartooth Point, and we're now using some beer cans to sort of lead you in the general direction away from that. Of course, we rapidly saw that these teens were drinking a truly ludicrous number of beers in one walk.
I think you and I both placed quite a few of these beer cans, probably you even more than I.
Yep.
It started to sort of strain credulity.
Right, which is why I think we had to add that case at the end just to make it plausible that there are something like 30 cans out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably the best tool we ended up coming up with for this, which was the smoke plume.
Right.
Was because we were getting increasingly uncomfortable with stretching fiction so far to the point of adding this many Hansel and Gretel beer cans.
That's right. And but even then, the smoke plume was not enough. Many players didn't notice it or weren't looking up, which we know is a common game design problem. And that's when we started adding dialogue where Henry could call into Delilah and basically say, do you have any ideas? I'm lost. I still can't find them. Kind of mirroring what we saw in playtesting where people did get lost and got frustrated.
Right.
Ultimately, when that fell down...
eventually, if you have not noticed anything, you haven't asked Delilah about any of this stuff, she will just call you and say, hey, I see some smoke. Maybe that's where you should go.
Right. And that pretty well sews it up.
The sort of full court press of all of those things. I think most players eventually find their way to the teens. I mean, we figured it was okay for players to get lost a little bit. I mean, that is the point of this. You are supposed to be on an aimless search a little bit on this mission. But, I think with all of the different tools we added in, most players eventually feel like they're actually on some kind of trail.
I mean, I suggested an omniscient satellite AI that could contact you and tell you exactly where to go, but that was shot down.
It was a late cut.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Will, and I was the gameplay and systems programmer on Firewatch.
And I'm James, and I was the animator on Firewatch.
And we're here to talk about climbing and mantling today.
We had a bunch of stuff that essentially was more point-to-point interactive stuff, where you sort of look to the rock you wanted to put your hand on and click on it, and you'd kind of do that. A lot of the platforming-y type stuff just got pared down because as you make the game, you realize what game you're making, and it's not really about being an athletic climbing person. It just kind of made the game slower when you were trying to get to the next conversation. Mostly what the climbing stuff ended up being useful for in game design terms was characterization. So some of the mantles do a decent job of getting across that Henry is kind of a lumbering, slightly heavier person as we sort of like force you to watch Henry kind of slug over an edge rather than being a nimble, mirror's edgy person.
We also use it a lot of times to break up sightlines so that you get a good vista as you come up over a mantle, like when you see the man with the flashlight for the first time, or kind of see the burned forest.
In the cave, sometimes we use the camera animation on mantles to hide a sort of teleport to a different part of the cave, which was pretty useful actually, so that was quite good.
The reason that it all got pared down is we didn't want you to ever fall off the cliff, didn't want you to back down them. Like, nobody ever wanted to climb back up those twice, so we just made them simpler and simpler and simpler until eventually getting to you just hit the button and climb all the way up.
One of the earliest conversations I had with Jake, he just sort of casually mentioned, oh, and we're thinking that you can't die in this game, and which now seems like the most obvious design decision ever for Firewatch, but I'd only been making games before then where it's like, yeah, and then you have your character can die and you respawn and da-da-da, like traditional video game stuff. And the idea suddenly of like, oh, like how do you make content that still feels like I'm climbing over stuff and I'm doing things, but with absolutely no risk? And I remember at the very beginning being like, oh god, is that going to be a huge problem? Of course now, if you ever saw Henry fall to his death in the game, it would be ludicrous and ruin the moment.
Absolutely.
But Firewatch 2 is going to have lots and lots of falling to your death, obviously.
I don't think so. I love
Oh, hey, this is Ben again, and I'm here with Paolo.
Hello, I'm Paolo. I was a graphics programmer on Firewatch.
So we're here to talk a little bit about the time of day system that the game uses and the skybox stuff. You're in an area where there's a weird device that you can use to step and mess around with those while we talk.
As you can see around you right now, you can walk on the different parts there and you'll see the weather changing. So immediately when we started working on Firewatch, there were a couple of important points. We had to have a dynamic time of day. So at any point, people could trigger changing the sky, changing the fog, changing each individual component independently. At the same time, this has all sorts of technical implications, but the most important are, okay, how do we represent all this information? Games have many ways of baking data, which means that you sort of gather the lighting information in a scene and then you save it into memory, which is usually a texture or other data structures, to then use it in real time. Now, the problem with that was that we had a lot of different permutations and we wanted them to change in real time. And also, we didn't know ahead of time how many we were going to have. So we tried to go with a fully dynamic solution. In this case, what dynamic means is just that as you walk around, you'll see the sun moving around, the sky color changing, the fog color changing, and the shadows moving. So all those components are always rendered every frame and there's no information that is stored anywhere.
So what pieces make up the sky again?
The sky, we tried first an approach of representing sort of a simplified version of the scattering equation and seeing what that would look like. And it was looking good in the game, but it was still very difficult to author. And since Ollie, as the art director, is absolutely talented with colors, at some point we just sat down and we sort of worked together and said, okay, imagine that you could just paint the sky in Photoshop and think about how that would work in the game. It might just magically work. And by doing that, we basically dissected his process of assembling just a painted sky in Photoshop, and we created a shader, which are basically programs that run on the GPU to render things, that suited his exact style. So really, the sky is just a series of gradients that blend into each other with a couple of controls to change curves and attenuations between them. So as you'll walk around, you'll be able to see how both the sky changes and then the fog adapts to the same color and the sun moves in the right direction. And then there were just a couple of numbers to make sure that like the brightness around the sun would be higher so that it would still sort of represent and give the feeling of what the sky and how the sky behaves.
And this like gave Ollie the ability to test some things very quickly.
Exactly. Having immediate feedback for filling a world that was as big as Firewatch, especially for the sort of limited team size that we had, was absolutely important. Like, we had to have a way so that artists would make something quickly, have an idea of what it would look in the game, and knowing that it was pretty close to what we were going to ship.
Yep.
Play your cards right, and maybe you'll find out, fella.
Okay. Anyway, I know there's one over there by the lake, but I have to go to Shitty Boss is gonna get me killed hill to like put the rope there so I can climb down. Just so it's there. Like, if I go and get the one thing first, I am going to have to come back over here anyway to then go this way to just do that anyway. 2 birds with 1 stone or something. I don't know.
Hey, Jane.
Hi, Jake. Let's talk about how I almost killed you over this canyon crossing.
Why would anyone have any objection to something in a game as lovely as this area?
So originally, when we first built this whole canyon, you can only walk through the bottom where the creek is.
It looks really lovely when you're walking along the bottom looking up.
And you cannot get close to anything.
You can just
up here.
imagine what the top of the canyon looks like, and you don't ever have to see it or make it.
Basically, there was nothing up here.
But what if, like, think about this though, what if you could walk across the top of it and look down, and then we built all of that too?
I just remember the day when you mocked this out in the paper map and just gingerly just showed it to me. And then I looked at it and I was like,
what's that line? What's that line doing going over the...
No way. No way, Jake.
There was no way I was going to win that. I mean, I ended up just building a lot of it myself to
And
try
then, and I think you were like, okay, how about this other thing? I was like, okay, this other thing is fine, but this is definitely not happening.
I just secretly built a million walls and trees and, like, did every single thing that I possibly could to make it so
But
you
you
would look
did
at
a
it.
good job, though, because, like, the thing I was really worried about was when you're up there, you end up seeing basically the whole length of the canyon and then also all the way to basically towards Delilah's tower, which means it's like
Right,
way
all the way
like
through, like,
Yeah.
the Beartooth Point
it would be
area.
like way too much game to try to draw.
Mule Point. Yeah,
So that
exactly.
was that was the original sort of, you know,
It was a lot
fear.
of very careful, like, then you go around this turn and then you secretly drop down 3 feet and a bunch of
Yeah.
huge trees come up. I was very happy that we were able to get the canyon crossing in because it's one of the few places where I think you do a total figure 8 over yourself.
It was nice that you managed to problem solve all the sight line areas before I lose my mind.
Thanks for not killing me. I'm alive to be on this commentary track.
No, I got confused for a second. I forgot there was one, like, closer there. The one that my brain went to, because I remember the one at the top was there, was, like, right where Henry's like, hell of a nice camping spot. So I was like, no, because that's not that close to Shitty Boss is going to get. No, see, that makes a lot more sense. Oops.
Hi, this is Will.
And this is James again.
We're talking about the rope right now. You should be one nearby.
Yeah, the rope was the very, very first thing I ever did in the entire game. It kind of seeped into being quite an important part of the world layout. We sort of had this whole Metroidvania items thing, and the rope was very much our first, like, you know, that's the rockets that let you get through the door in Metroid. It was such an early flag we planted in the ground for ourselves. So, yeah, there were lots of technical things, weren't there?
All the rope climbs are different. All the rope slides are different. Minorly different, but different enough. So the rope had to be physically simulated. It couldn't be just a pre-canned animation. In order to get that to work, it took a ton of time, lots of iterations. In the end, I had to basically make Henry's hand a gravity well whenever he's on the rope, and then grab the nearest parts of the rope and reskin them to bones that I was just making out of math around Henry's hand and belt. So it's like left hand, right hand, and belt are all take over as fake bones, and we reskin the rope every frame to get that to match up perfectly. And if you look real close at the rope, you can see sort of a little bit in front of his hands, the texture on it. The tiling changes and kind of squishes and stretches and squishes and stretches as you go down. And that's because the rope position doesn't naturally always like line up with even spacing when I swap in those fake bones.
Yeah, the rope is one of the best examples if you were to like zoom the camera out and look at what's going on, where like I'm sort of animating by the seat of my pants and like just keeping his hands in the perfect position so that that transition between the physics rope and the skinning version of the rope, you know, doesn't blend too strangely. And it's probably the set of animations in the game that has the most versions made. There's probably like 10 different versions of climbing down. There used to be things where your hands would swap in front of you, you know, picking the rope from one to the other, and obviously that is unbelievably, ridiculously complicated once we had a physical rope. And
nice thing is you can get on it from anywhere and
at any time, and it all worked. So it was worth it in the end, but quite a bit of effort.
I missed one in the intro. No. Okay, well, you know what? I'm not going back for it. I'm not going back. Can't make. Nope.
Hello, this is Jane again.
And Chris.
And we are now by the lake. And you might be noticing that there's some really sweet duck sounds by the lake.
Jane bugged me for duck sounds for months. Actually, one of the oldest, we track our tasks on the game with like a task tracker or a bug tracker. So you rank them all by priority. And I think the lowest or second lowest priority thing on my list for months was duck sounds for Jane. And that just sat there until I think one day I just didn't have a lot to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm doing it. I'm bumping the duck sounds up the chain. I think I just looked on the internet for public domain duck noises.
Yeah, I think you were actually wondering what kind of ducks there would be too. You were very
I looked it
thorough.
up. I researched it, and I think I was mainly there. I think I fudged it a little bit because I didn't want it to just be the same to. I wanted there to be a variety, so it didn't get annoying if you hung out there for a while.
It's not just ducks; it's like waterfowl.
Yeah, so I branched out a bit, but got them in.
Yay!
Thanks for bugging me about the duck sounds.
Yeah, Campo Santo, you literally could have. I mean, people don't know who I am anyway, so it's fine. You literally could have just hired me. I would have done it for free. I would have come into the studio. You're like, quack. I know it doesn't really sound like a duck. Quack. I make good ducks. Quack. I'm just saying, why didn't you guys think to freaking hire quack? Okay. Where the hell am I going? Yeah, I know there's 3 left. I'm actually very salty about the intro thing. I don't even know where the other one was. I mean, to be fair, I didn't think about the thing with the map, but I was looking, damn it. I don't know where I missed the important things. That's fine. Well, at the very least, I slightly know what I'm doing. Now. Only took an hour and 17 minutes. Oops.
Hi, this is Ben again, and I'm here with Paolo.
Ben.
Hello.
We're going to talk about stylistic fog and some of the other effects in the game.
For the stylistic fog, we basically use the same approach that we use for the other rendering components and technologies of Firewatch, which was how do we get something that allows Ollie and Jane to really just be directive and paint colors and information like they want into a 3D world. So the only challenge that was there really was how do we translate sort of a 3D scene that has depth into it, into layers of colors, and immediately we came up with this technique of using a one-dimensional texture that is applied. You can imagine that the image, it's a sort of a rectangular image, goes from left to right. Imagine that left is the color that is closer to the player, and right is the color that is in the distance. So in that way, you are basically able to paint color in the depth of the world, and that really gave Jane and Ollie the control they needed to make the Firewatch colors as beautiful as they are.
Yeah, it really matches a lot of Ollie's original poster and previs work for the game.
Yeah.
And that technique is used a lot in film. In film, they wouldn't even just use one texture. Sometimes they'll use hundreds of these strips to layer out an entire scene. But can't do that in a video game because we got to render at a lot of frames per second on bad computers sometimes.
Yeah, and for that, for the color correction specifically, we used the plugin that was actually available in the Unity Asset Store, and it just worked right off the bat for us. It gave us sort of the real-time tweaking that we needed, and thanks to that, we saved some development time, which was really precious.
Yeah, that was the amplify color if you're really wanting to make your own Firewatch. And in an area like this Aspen Grove, you can see all those effects coming together. You see we have God rays coming from the sun, we have depth of field. If you pick up an object to blur out the world, you can see all the different colors that Ollie's manipulating beyond just what the sky and light would provide.
Yeah, awesome.
Sorry, it's weird seeing yourself, Henry. I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about it. I mean, you do look good, but the only time we actually see his face at all in this game, as far as I'm aware anyway, is in the pictures at the very end of the game during the credits. and even that, the picture, and like the rest of them after yours, because it shows like, you know, Ned and the kid and, you know, whatever. Brian! Jeez, I'm sorry, the kid, I forgot his name for a second. Even though now I'm being all paranoid and shit. It's drawn. It's not a real picture like the other ones are, so it's neat being able to actually see Henry in his Popeye arms and his hairy forearm. Okay, whatever. Enough rambling, let's go.
Hi, this is Ollie again.
And this is Syndra. I work as a character artist.
One of the most important things about this game, from our point of view, is to try and get the player to kind of inhabit this character Henry, and a big part of that was his character design. We wanted him to be a little different to the regular kind of character you might expect from this kind of game. He's a little older, a little more portly, and we wanted to make sure that, you know, when you look down, you can see your body and you really like feel as if you are playing this character. And to do that, I designed him from the point of view of like trying to make him feel like an older man in terms of the way he moved, he looked. We used a lot of, I guess, reference for this, particularly comedian Louis C.K. was one that we
I had like a mood board that I made that's just essentially just like a collage of Louis C.K. and there was also a fair bit of like Wreck-It Ralph and like the Heavy from Team Fortress, sort of like these heavy, sort of slow moving characters. So actually, when I was modeling, I would actually put like a camera in Henry's head so I could look down at his body, which is like, I think most of the designed characters for third-person games and mobile and stuff like that, I was not used to, you know, designing anything from that perspective. The initial model I sent you guys was pretty much just a bunch of primitives mashed together, like really rough, sort of like, you know, early Dreamcast 3D kind of looking stuff, just to get like a feel for the, you know, just the proportions and to give James something to rig so he could just get something moving and kind of get a preview of the motions, because, you know, you don't need like a fully formed, highly detailed 3D model to just do animation. So actually nailing that stuff early on was really important, I think.
One of the biggest focuses was the hands, because those are the things that the player sees the most, and they're the most sort of expressive Henry. So we wanted to make sure that the shapes were really simple and bold and evocative in order to allow James, our animator, kind of give him the best material to work with and portray the character through those motions.
Yeah, they're practically the main character.
Hey, it's Sean.
And Chris. Hey, Sean.
So we are at the teens' camp that has been destroyed, ransacked, rummaged, torn apart.
Yeah.
And I know you had some confusion over this, Chris.
I did. I didn't realize I had confusion. So I was the person who did all the gameplay, wiring, logic, hookup stuff for this scene. And the entire time I was doing it, I, for some reason, was under the mistaken impression that it was a bear that destroyed this camp. I, for some reason, had convinced myself that, Goodwin was sort of involved in framing Henry for teen stuff, but also, just separately and coincidentally, a bear just like blasted through here and tore up the tent. And I think I didn't realize until the game was almost done that that was not the case.
And I think that's one of the challenges of making a game like this, and where we're telling a story that doesn't explicitly call out why everything is happening. I think, me personally, and I think you agree with me, Chris, because we talk about movies and stories a lot, is I really find it obnoxious when a story goes out of its way to explain everything and handhold you through the plot of the story. Ultimately, you, the player, may have thought it doesn't really matter to you whether it was Goodwin or a bear, because it's doing all the things on an emotional level that it needs to do as a scene, which is stress you out, realize there's danger, and create the fact that the teens feel like it was you. Like, you just know it's not you, so that's what works here. Like,
or
as
you
written,
may have correctly intuited what happened, and that's also good.
Yeah, Goodwin sets out to cause you distress and frame you for acts of violence such as this.
By inflaming the already existing tension between you and these teens.
Exactly right. Because he just wants you out of here. You entered that cave on your first day, and he knows what's in the bottom of it, and sort of
doesn't want you to.
Yeah, trips a trigger for him.
Yeah.
But yeah,
all right.
They're gone for sure.
The girls?
I found their campsite. Someone or something tore it to shreds, and the girls left me a note behind.
Well, what's it say?
Threatening to call the police because they think I attacked them.
Yeah, it's bad.
Did you?
Like Delilah, it's bad. Sorry, I'm letting this play out because I actually like this piece of dialogue.
Henry, did you attack or do anything that could be perceived as an attack to these campers?
I'm doing it on purpose. Better playthrough I did yesterday. I'm trying, Delilah. I didn't do it. I'm innocent. Innocent.
Look, just get out of there, okay? I'm sure whatever happened wasn't your fault.
Sorry.
If you can hear me, I'm sure it's just a weird misunderstanding.
Sure, you have no idea.
I'm just glad they're gone. It's probably the best case scenario for us, and now we can just get back to work.
You don't understand, Delilah.
I'd really like to start enjoying a quiet summer.
I am literally, Delilah, just trying to do the behind the scenes here, okay? I don't much care for any of this other shit. Delilah, I'm gonna need you to get off my ass. I did not attack the teens. I did not destroy their campsite. I did steal a couple of their beer. But you know what? I also stole their whiskey, but we're not here to talk about me, though. We're not here to talk about me. Oh, okay, sorry. I thought I saw something and it freaked me out. Okay. Now, how many are on this day? So, okay.
Hey, Henry?
Yeah.
There's only 3.
What do you look like?
Why are you asking?
Because I'm horribly superficial.
I could be Tom Cruise's good-looking twin brother.
Oh, that's too bad. I read in people he's like 5'0" nothing.
Hey, this is Will.
And this is James.
We actually spent a lot of time trying to get the physicality of Firewatch nailed down, and one of the big parts of that was getting objects in your hand that feel like you could pick things up and touch them. Turned out to be quite a bit of work, though, nothing that was like reinventing the wheel. It was just a matter of getting very specific offsets and very specific grips for every single item in the game, nearly.
We had tons of concepts, and we were looking at all sorts of games, and like Far Cry 2 and things for like, where's the best example of grabbing something in the world and it isn't just floating in front of you, sort of Half-Life 2 stuff. We ended up just basically popping it into your hand over one frame, but making sure that happens at the exact moment that your hand's swiping over it, and it's worked surprisingly well. There were sorts of strange things as well, though, like these giant hands, and then like you'd put a beer can in his hand and suddenly be like, oh right, yeah, it looks like a little miniature minibar, airplane kind of thing. And so there are all kinds of strange little things that cropped up, but actually having the objects in your hand and you could turn them around from any angle, it ended up making it worth doing all these super detailed props. Like Ollie would make the fireworks and do just really funny, cool designs that you could only actually see if you turned them around and looked at them really closely, and I think it paid off basically.
And those are just like a couple of poses that we blend between. Those aren't even very complicated little lookovers, right?
Yeah, not at all really. There's basically one for books and there's one for everything else, and it's just pretty much 2 points, like fully to the left and fully to the right, with just like a sort of intelligent blend between those two things. So there were so many items in the game we couldn't have authored individual examines for them all. But even that ended up being incredibly hard to tune to get just right. Again, lots of iteration.
I got that window all patched up. So what should I do now? What's next?
What's next? What do you think is next?
Well, you've been the one giving me tasks for 2 days straight.
What's next is you sit in that room until September 1st and call me.
It's Ollie again. Oh, it's Jake. I realized sort of halfway through development that the player has a kind of quite a sort of nebulous idea of what Henry looks like, and that would be a fun thing to play with by getting the player to describe themselves to Delilah, and then having those answers feed into a drawing that you would then find in Delilah's tower at the end of the game.
I think actually even one step back behind that, you had done a sketch really early on of the inside of Delilah's tower that just had a drawing of Henry's face and said Henry and pointed at his tower, and I think that was that was the inspiration.
Yeah,
maybe Delilah just like, I thought that moment already was really cool, that you'd get to Delilah's tower and see that she'd drawn what she thinks you look like and an arrow pointing at your lookout tower. But in that sketch, it was Henry's face, and we're like, how would... I think you said, this doesn't make any sense because she would not draw an on-model perfect Henry.
Right.
And then Sean took the Delilah draws Henry idea and ran with it and made it the conversation for day 3. Mm-hmm. Because I think day 3's initial design was, you nail up some boards. Nels and I had to actually build the end result from all the sketches you did of the different faces, shirts, and mustaches.
Originally I was just going to draw individual drawings for each.
Yeah, it ended up being well over 1,000, maybe thousands and thousands of variants that would have had to be drawn.
We needed to come up with a smart
Yeah,
solution.
we had to do something smarter, so we broke it all down into pieces. And that piece of paper that you find in Delilah's tower is actually, I think, being like put together from pieces in real time for each player. Like there's no texture that has any one of those things.
Yeah, and it allowed us to do a somewhat sort of shonky Delilah drawing, which I think is quite funny and unexpected, given that
I love that
like
Delilah is bad at drawing. It's a game.
Especially-
It's a game full of everyone who can draw because you drew all of it. So it's good that Delilah just draws just
draws bad drawing.
Okay, well, I draw bad drawings, so do you want to have a competition?
Hi, this is Jane again.
And Chris.
And we are right by the outhouse. And this is also where we decided to put the generator that Henry has to use for power.
To make it as annoying as possible for him when he's using the facilities.
So normally I think the generator is not usually by the outhouse. Usually it's actually under the tower where it would be, more convenient. But we decided to put it there because it's usually more interesting for gameplay if you sort of cluster a few objects of interest together, so it's not just super spread out.
It ended up being a real challenge for audio because most of the time when you're in the tower, you don't want to hear the generator because it would just get annoying and repetitive. But there were certain times, like when you first arrive at the tower and you flip the power switch on and the generator goes on, you want the player to hear the generator, so it needs to be much louder, but then you don't want them to walk down the stairs and the generator's incredibly loud. So I had to do all this weird cheating basically to cheat the level of the generator audio volume depending on what the game needs it to be. Also, funny story about the generator. So you found this classic generator model.
I think it's called a Genero.
Generis, I think?
Yeah, it's something like that. Basically, I based it off of this real generator, but to not infringe on anyone's brand name, I just changed it a little bit, and I was like, ha ha ha, funny, I would just call it generic.
And then we actually heard from someone we know who works for the real generator company. He was telling us that when he saw that in the game, it cracked him up because at that actual company, when they're frustrated at their own product, if something is not doing its job, they actually call it generic generator. Jane managed to
we nailed it.
Completely nail the insider terminology for this classic generator.
Okay, now I'm ready. Let's get to work.
Good. Now get to work.
Got it. Okay, cool. Day 9. I'm still salty about the intro, and I'm still salty. I don't care. I don't know where I missed it. I'm gonna have to be on the lookout while I'm editing. It was probably in my general. Okay, so I'm gonna have to get this one in.
Hello, Henry. Having a nice afternoon?
Yep. Hold on. Yep.
Hi, it's Ben.
And it's James again.
And this is day 9, a story-only day. There's not a lot to do.
Yeah, primarily you just eat a sandwich, but there was at one point gonna be elks. In the sort of framing of the beautiful sunset across the canyon, there was gonna be a very majestic herd of elks, and in fact this is why we made the elk rig, as far as I recall, because now the only other places in the game where you see it there's a dead one, which is optional and apparently quite hard to find.
Yeah, most people miss that one.
Yeah, and there's one in the intro, but we made them so they could majestically stalk through the canyon in a herd. And, well, actually, I made an elk walk cycle and nibbling on grass animations, but the problem was we did all this weird, sort of conjecture about how we could implement this, and it's uneven ground and there's winding passages through the cavern. Well, maybe we could do some kind of elk navigation, or we could have them walk along a spline, and then it very quickly was clear that that's very silly.
What's interesting, though, is this is still one of the most taken photographs in Firewatch as it is. People still think it's very pretty.
Yeah, it ended up being less is more.
Yeah.
Everyone, you want to slap elks everywhere, but sometimes you've got to exercise restraint.
Well, game 2, nothing but elks, probably,
nothing
right?
But elks.
Nothing but elks. Firewatch 2, nothing but elks.
Henry?
Yes?
Henry, wake up.
Yes?
Get out of bed and pick up the radio.
No. You got me all scared now. Actually,
Hi, Larissa.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Well, I think you probably know this, but in the original script, your character was not Australian. She was from Chicago. And then you were cast, and I changed the entire script.
Hooray
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know that she was from Chicago, but I did know that she was originally American. But then when we discussed it, you know, you had that thought of, well, why couldn't she be from anywhere as, you know, the world becomes more multicultural? And therefore, since I am Australian natively anyway, to just, you know, capitalize on that.
It was like a beautiful discovery. It was so serendipitous because it would have been really easy, I feel like, even though you and Cissy sound so different, like you have different tones of voice. I think it would have been easy had you had an American accent for people to a little bit be confused. It's a really startling scene, this scene that we're in here, where the radio chirps and it's his wife and not his boss.
Her, yeah.
Yeah, it's good shit on me the first time. I'm going to be honest with you.
I watched a bit of gameplay with people in that moment playing the game and their commentary on it, and it's always really fun to have that. What?
Yeah.
Who is that? Who is that? Is that, you know, it's kind of like having that moment of going so unfamiliar to kind of jut in with this different sound when everyone's expecting it to be Cissy. So
yeah, and I really don't believe he would have gotten that with such a potent like pop had we had it not been the accent. And to the point where I think had you had an American accent, I would have asked you to do one. I wouldn't have had the idea had I not been presented with you as an actor.
To do that.
Yeah, it never even occurred to me for that to be the case until it was like, well, she's the best woman for the job, and oh, she also happens to be Australian. Oh, wait, why isn't Julia Australian? Wait, that's so much better across the board. Why wasn't she Australian to begin with? I am bad at my job.
2 weeks ago, you called me in the middle of the night. You were sleeping, I guess. And
On day 2, you have a bunch of conversations with Delilah about Julia, or not. You can kind of choose to have those conversations in any which way you see fit, being really open about your life, or lying, or just sort of playing it soft. And all of that stuff now comes to a head here on day 33. And all of the choices you make, there's something like 30 lines of inquiry, but you can experience 4. I think there's like 33 maybe? You'll experience 4, and whatever is true in Delilah's mind based on that ends up sort of triggering this conversation here, where she wants to know either about Julia, a name she heard on day 15, or wants to tell you about her life and her experiences with a guy named Javier. And a lot of players will play this game and never even know who Javier is. It might be you. You might not know that character exists because of the way you talk to Delilah on day 2.
You learn more about Delilah if you tell her less about yourself, if I'm not mistaken.
It's actually the polls. So if you tell her absolutely everything, or you tell her absolutely nothing, you learn a lot about her. The way we made these work on day 2 is kind of interesting. There's a lot of sort of state management going on. We're paying attention to a lot of stuff. One is just how long has it been since you've talked to Delilah? But then we also kind of need to know how long has it been since Delilah has talked to you about some heavy life stuff? Because if she keeps calling you back and being like, so, tell me about your life. So, wife, huh? Girlfriend? It's just going to feel, at best, annoying, and at worst, completely unbelievable. So we're also tracking that. And then we also don't want Delilah calling you like all the time. Like we don't want her calling you when we know there's a good chance you're about to discover something big in the mystery. Like you're about to climb to the top of the wire on day 2. And we don't want her to be like, so, girlfriend? That would be bad. So what we did is we actually paced the game out by putting these invisible sort of like cube triggers all over the world. And I mean, I probably placed, 30, 40 of them. And as you enter them, the game just sort of asks itself, how long has it been since Delilah's called you? How long has it been she talked about Delilah? And what is true? What does she know to be true about Julia? And it was a little hard to debug, but we built a pretty like clean looking, at least I tried to build a really clean looking state machine for it. But ultimately, I'm really happy with the way it played out, in that it feels like you are wandering through the world and the conversation unfolds naturally. But furthermore, it was really fun to actually build once I had it working, because I could pace the game by physically moving triggers around the world, whereas like, oh, that was too soon, like spread these apart, delete that one, put that one over here, put that one in this grove. And it was a really sort of satisfying way to tell this part of the story.
From my point of view, it makes it so much more heartbreaking that he leaves her so far away. And I think, because I married an American and I had like a long distance relationship for maybe like 4 months before I came over, and that, it's really stinking far away, you know? So to have
really
that
far.
separation, if it's Chicago, you kind of go, well, get on the plane for a couple of hours and then you can go and visit her. But a 14-hour journey and the emotional heartstring pull, like all of that, you can understand why he's so torn about what to do, and also for him to move to a completely different country and then have to deal with, you know, a sick wife and living in a space that he's unaware of, you know. So even though, of course, living in the forest is about as
Right,
unfamiliar as you can get as well, but you know,
it's like double
worst of two
distance.
evils.
Yeah, it's like 14 hours
That's
to the
right.
trailhead from Australia, and then another 14 hours from the trailhead to the lookout tower. So it's like more
That's
than
right.
a day's journey away from this person.
That's right. And then the only contact you have by phone, and you know, and I think we discussed this in recording, where you know, when you have a phone conversation with someone, it's great now with Skype and FaceTime and everything because you can actually see their reaction, but there's so many little nuances to a conversation that you just have no idea. Is it because they're half asleep? Is it because they don't give a shit? Is it because... Oh, I'm sorry, can I swear?
Oh, you
Is
can
it-
totally
it's-
swear. There's so many
Okay, cool.
fucks and shits
Great.
in this game, it's not even, you can't stand it.
Fucking shit. Yeah. It's, you know, or is it because he doesn't give a shit about her anymore and she doesn't know and she's confused anyway? And yeah, so that kind of complexity for me made that little scene so much more beautiful and tearing at the heartstrings kind of thing.
Come on, Firewatch.
Hey, you didn't take all of the supply drop food, did you?
I can explain. Oh god. Go!
So you did.
Hi, this is Ben again. And I'm Gabe. I did production and office management at Firewatch. This is day 34, and Ben, how long did it take you before you actually saw this day? Well, since I'm a good person, I never actually made the choice to steal that food, and did not see it until after we shipped. So I definitely did. I played through every day, hundreds of times. You did a better job than me, Gabe. I didn't see it until we were submitting the first patch for PS4, when you chose this path, and I was like, what? There's content here that I've never seen? It's my job, Ben, to show you content you've never seen. Alright, hopefully in the next game I get to see the whole thing before it goes out. As long as there's no moral choices in it, you will. Yeah, that's fair.
I usually think of something funny or something practical or...
In this scene, Henry and Delilah get sort of the closest they get in the game in terms of their intimacy. Cissy, I think you've been drinking.
What?
That's pretty obvious. Rich / Henry, you're delightfully awkward in all of your painful ways. And something, I don't know if I told you guys this, but I had this notion that this was going to get really hot and heavy. Right now, the scene sort of ends very, like, in a suggestive manner, and I was going to write it to be much more explicit and to go into a place of just, like, raw, I guess you would call it nakedness, even though, like, it's audio, but just very, like, private and sexual, but I didn't because I was afraid.
I love that you didn't.
Yeah.
I'm glad of that too.
Number one, because awkward walkie-talkie sex is just awkward. But number two, because if the player isn't playing it as a flirty relationship, then it doesn't have to go there. And then this way kind of leaves it up to people's imaginations, which I think is more poignant than spelling it out.
I think also we became so close as a trio over this that having to sit in on that after having to write it was going to be like a bridge too far for me. Yeah, I just wanted to say you guys did such a like amazing job with the very limited stuff I put on the page in the scene. This is probably my favorite scene in the game.
You like set the mood. You lit the candle. You know.
I'll just leave this here. Just light
Put
this
the needle
candle
on the record.
Yeah, little Moody Blues and walk out.
Poured the bourbon.
Yeah.
No, it was easy to feel all of that. Rich, I feel like I'm yapping the whole thing about, like, yapping on about it. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, so good.
Okay, that was good.
When Delilah asks you, hey, are you looking at the fire? Most players are just either looking at it or about to pull the trigger and say, or hit shift and scroll to, yeah, I'm looking at it. And she goes, great, and starts talking about the fire. But because we are game developers and we know what you're looking at, if you are just staring at Delilah's tower when she says, hey, are you looking at the fire? Henry, without your input, will go, no, I'm looking at you. And Delilah's response to that, the way Cissy Jones played it, is so perfect. It's surprised and like almost like you can feel the one little butterfly in her belly. And I'm just so tickled with it as a moment in the game. I think Jane or someone came up with it and was like, yep, we're doing that. And it was in the game very, very shortly thereafter. So next time you play 64, or if you haven't gotten to that point right now, do that and you will be hopefully as tickled as I was.
I wish you were too.
We could sit outside. We could talk. We've got these radios. We could, you know.
What? What could we do?
Well, let me tell you.
Okay, good. I was being a little bit weird there, at least with the one, because some of these days, well, I mean, okay, I guess you can make the argument. Oh, jeez, what is going on with my hat right now?
You're going fishing without
Are all
license?
timed, and it's like you gotta
one
be
fish.
careful
I'm sick of
about
all the stuff I got to eat.
Well, maybe you shouldn't have taken so much of it then. That reminds me, I keep hearing reports from Fish and Game about a problem bear they're trying to keep tabs on. Can you search around the lake for fresh tracks and just let me know what you find?
Uh-huh.
There was a crew burning fire lines out to the east, and, you know, I think sometimes it riles up the wildlife.
Does problem actually mean murderer? Like how Charles Manson is a problem cult leader?
Oh, come on.
Hi guys, it's Sean.
And Chris. So here on day 76, we're concluding a series of shorter days that internally we referred to as the montage.
The goal was to figure out a way to let you play through the passage of time.
The inspiration came from a few different places, and Sean, you can sort of correct or add as necessary. One was just obviously the cinematic concept of a montage. We thought that's just a cool way to, you know, convey long passage of time without spending a huge amount of the player's time relative to that.
You referencing movies made me think of every sports montage ever, like every training montage, and then remembering that for like 3 weeks I was obsessed with this idea because we were trying to figure out ways to come up with new gating mechanics. And I was like, oh, there should just be like ledges and stuff that Henry isn't strong enough to pull himself up. And then inside of this montage, there should be like a part where Henry goes like underneath his tower and there's this like a support pole that goes across it. And you can just do pull-ups. And you can do pull-ups 2 or 3 times during the montage. And then by the time we get to day 76, Henry just has the strength, the upper body strength to pull himself to higher, which would explain the new gating mechanic. So it was like sports montage to the max. We would have had to get like another 80s song in the game.
Like a jock jam.
Yeah. Oh, I would have killed for a jock jam in this game. I would have given up Etta James for a jock jam in this game. Just kidding. Absolutely not.
No.
Anyway.
Sports montages, as well as film montages, important influence here. Also the game 30 Flights of Loving, I think. Yeah, that is a very short, like 10-minute experience. If you look it up, 30 Flights of Loving, by a guy named Brendan Chung, who's just a brilliant independent game developer. I did the music for that game, coincidentally. And that game is pretty much entirely told through a series of hard cuts out of chronological order. And when we sort of combined what we liked about that and thought would work in our game with the existing day structure that we talked about earlier, it just made sense as this sort of second act of the game. Something that I think is surprisingly rare in games. You don't see a lot of montage in video games.
No. And I kind of know why. It's technically actually
it's not even
really hard.
It is really hard, and we actually strayed from our original concept, which was much more of a montage with very quick shots. I mean, it's a stretch maybe actually to call it a montage because you play several minutes of game at a time. You know,
there is a moment in here like where you can if you take all the food.
Oh yeah, if you do that, you'll get a bonus.
A very
track.
small day, and I'm sure there's a tape on that. There is that is montage-y in length, but it's a technical hurdle to make a montage.
It's hard. You have to load the entire world in and out.
Yeah, so you made like being able to cut on a beat like a montage would sort of impossible because we're loading scenes and moving you all over the map and redressing the scene every time, and it's. You have to actually build quite a technological underpinning to do one. I think that's maybe at the core. Something we discovered.
Those words were from 2 weeks.
Hey, it's Chris again.
And it's James again.
This moment by the lake where you get punched out by the person who turns out to be Ned Goodwin is one of the few times in the game where we have a complete takeover cutscene like this, sort of fully animated.
It shoulders the burden for the whole second half of the game of the player feeling scared. Like when they get to the research site, a lot of people have talked to me about they were always worried that they were going to get punched again because it happens from behind, so they're constantly sort of like spinning the camera around. It's along with like the rope breaking on day one, it's probably like one of the biggest punchy action set pieces I got to animate. And it's also interesting that like most of the action happens off camera, so I'm sort of implying a bunch of stuff and then sort of handing it over to audio and being like, okay, you need to basically make most of this actually work.
Yeah, scoring this was almost like scoring a tiny little radio drama because there are the sort of creeping footsteps behind you and they're panning slightly from right to left as they approach, and then there's the big like Indiana Jones style fist punch sound, which was really fun. That was definitely the most outrageous sound I got to put in this game. And then the ringing, it was really fun. This moment changed a fair amount because it was so incredibly difficult to communicate to the player, there's this exact little thing on the ground that you have to notice and pick up, and you have to do that for the game to progress. There was actually a version of this where you didn't technically need to pick up the radio, and it just led to way too much design uncertainty and confusion.
Yeah, this was definitely one of those points where we had to be realistic about, is the game actually getting better for giving you the option to completely ignore every single part of the through line of the game? And in this case we said, no, it's not actually.
Yeah, a lot of this game ended up being about finding a compromise between player expressivity and actually making sure some kind of coherent story got told. So this was quite a significant example of that in development. It took a long time to nail down, but I'm pretty happy with where it ended up.
Love turd. Sorry.
Hi, Jane.
Hi, Sean.
I can't
There's a
find
turtle here.
There's a turtle here.
Where?
I think it's probably your doing, even though in classic Camposanto form, playing autopsy detective on how the turtle got into the game is not yielding any definitive results.
I think I remember wanting something. Like I said, I just want a place that's very pleasant in the game, and I also want something very cute in the game. I think that was kind of on my wish list.
And we killed 2 turts with 1 stone here.
And then someone maybe said something about turtles, and then
a turtle. I think a turtle fit into the scope of what creature we could let you find and manipulate and animate, and we weren't afraid of it then.
Because we were also thinking,
we had the idea really early, and we were afraid of animals.
Yeah, because you're like, what if someone wants to throw a thing? Like if you throw a cute animal, usually that will hurt the animal, and then maybe someone said it would be fine if it's a turtle.
And you can definitely launch this turtle right into the lake, and hopefully Henry will say something about it if you do, which is one of my favorite moments in the game. And then I think Turt Reynolds, the name you can choose for him, was a bad joke made by a guy who shares an office with us, Zach Johnson from Kingdom of Loathing. He came out and said, "What about Turt Reynolds?" And we all groaned, and then I wrote it down.
And then we were like, well, now we have to have a turtle in the game.
Yeah. And then Turt made his debut at E3 2015 in the Firewatch E3 trailer And people lost their silly minds.
Yeah,
for
we were like,
Turd.
if we put Turd in this trailer, then we have to make it work in the finished game.
Yeah, he has to be a cornerstone. And then, you can feed him when you put him in you can give him a granola bar when you put him in the box back in your tower. I think that's still in the game. Yeah, you got all your wishes.
I know.
So here we are at the gate of what Henry only knows is Wapati Meadow.
Soon to be known as Wapati Station.
Dun dun dun. So we can even talk about how you actually technically don't have to come here on this day at all, but presuming you haven't done anything strange, you now have to attempt to break in to this weird fence that's just seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of the woods.
And realizing that the story needed that, we then were in a pickle where we went, well, we've never made you do anything like that before. Like, go and do an adventure game thing. Like, use an object with an object. And so we kind of put ourselves in a position via the story, and I think this is what I would classify as, like, not great game design, folks.
Correct.
Where for lack of, I'll take full credit, I guess, had pushed us into a place with the story where you needed to try to get into this place to justify going somewhere else less important to find a way to get in later. Because when you're telling a story, like, and then you have to kind of create a diversion, you don't want to be like, the most important thing you want is behind this gate, but you need to go elsewhere to get behind it. It's like the biggest, like, bugaboo of adventure game design, but we had written ourselves right into it, and the story was now like, or the game design was now subservient to the story, which is really bad if you're a game designer or an aspiring game designer.
Not the best place to be.
Not great. So Nels and Will and James set about piecing together the concept of being able to pick up things and then contextually change the action you could do with those things. And in terms of look and feel, I think you guys did a great job of being able to pick up the rocks that are to the left of the gate. There is, you probably don't know this player because it's very difficult to see, but there is a stick to the right of the gate.
And there's another one off to the left. Once you try to get in some fashion, the game is agnostic about which. Then you can say, like, hey, Delilah, I don't think I can get in here. And of course, in, like, classic Firewatch fashion, there's a bunch of very subtle, like, micro branches where if you actually try to break in with all three of the things, Henry's like, I tried to smash it and break it, I can't do it. So there's, like, a little bit of reactivity there that's cool, but also me and James and Will basically had to go through, like, a baton death march to get this to work, just because nothing else in the game at all works this way. With, like, because the objects, they're in your hand, but then as you use them on the gate, then they're destroyed, but they have to go somewhere, and it has to sync up with a special. It's just any one element that is complicated to do in the game to make look nice, and it has, like, all 10 of them.
And it's not built on any sort of, like, reusable system because we didn't imagine we were making a game where you would use thing on a thing like you do in, like, Monkey Island or whatever. But we walked ourselves right to that, unfortunately. But I think you guys did a valiant job, and I really love the way it actually feels to do it. I am just glad I wasn't the gameplay programmer on it. I'm very happy about this.
Lucky you.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. I'm just so... Oh, man. Great. Thank you.
This is Jared Emerson Johnson. I work for a company called Bay Area Sound. We did a lot of the sound editing and sound recording for the game. Did a lot of the ambience and a lot of the effects.
And I'm Chris Remo, and you've heard me on commentary before, but on this one I'm speaking in my capacity as, I guess, the audio director on this game, a role that I really did not deserve to have, and basically had to figure out as I was going along. We ended up developing, I think, a pretty close working relationship where we sort of split the sound design duties. It ended up being fairly half and half, probably slanted towards Jared in terms of total work volume.
Although you did you did the entirety of all the implementation, so you were sort of the mastermind of, what we needed and how it should go in the game, and I just kind of took whatever you needed from me and made it. So I was sort of the content horse, and you were the overseer and
Overlord.
obviously the overlord of sound. Yeah. Which was great. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that you were inexperienced, but it was smoother than some projects go, and it was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, and you at one point went and did some field recordings.
The sound in the game kind of breaks down pretty evenly between sound effects, which are the footsteps and the interactive parts of the sound where the player's interacting with objects and things in the game, and then there's the ambience part. And especially in this game, in any game the ambience is important, but in this game that was sort of really where we started and finished in terms of what the sound needed to be in creating this space. And I actually had several recordings I've been making over the past 10 years or so, various other big outdoor national park locations, stuff from Yosemite and stuff from... I've actually been hiking on the Pacific Crest Trail over the past 10 years, which is a trail that goes all the way from Mexico up to Canada. So it's great. So I mean, really, all of the ambient sound you're hearing is really coming from real wild spaces up in the mountains.
Yeah, and the ambience, man, I think it took us so long to dial in the approach we wanted to take, both in terms of the source material itself and also the way that it was designed and implemented.
Right.
I mean, I feel like we were revising that basically until like the last third of game development. I mean, not even just revising, but I would say like fundamentally changing how it worked. And eventually what's in the game now is sort of 3 layers of ambience that are mixed according to, where you are and the needs of the space and so on, plus additional what we called sweeteners of environmental noise, like wildlife and wind rustles and things like that, to give it some character.
This project was really kind of unique in that way, in its relationship with the ambience, because it was such a key part of creating the atmosphere of it. We spent a whole lot of time figuring out how we wanted to sort of differentiate each of the individual sections of the park, and also at what point you are in the story, and how the ambience should subtly change. It was probably the most detailed ambience work I've done on, I think, any project I've ever worked on doing this, just because it had to be so specific and subtle, but also evoke really clear tonal feeling across the game.
Yeah, I'm really happy.
Oops.
Hi, it's Jake.
And it's Jane.
We are at the medicine wheel, which was a thing that I put into the game when I was first grayboxing it and learning how to make anything in a game like this.
That was in really early, I think. Basically, we put in a tower, and then very soon afterwards, that was the medicine wheel.
Yeah, it was just like, I think it was a thing Sean and I thought would be cool to have in the game. I did not know how to make a medicine wheel, so, or rather, I didn't know how to make a video game, I guess. So I made it the way a real medicine wheel is made, which is out of a ton of tiny rocks, which meant that whenever anyone in the office turned their camera towards where the medicine wheel was
from the tower,
the frame rate died. And then you went in and fixed it, which is great. And by replacing it with like a real game thing that a real.
And also, it actually streams out really fast now.
Yeah, it's like the most efficient medicine wheel ever put in a game.
And it's a fantastic landmark actually, because there's like nothing else like it in the game. I was like, oh, the medicine wheel, like you instantly know where you are.
Yep. When doing work on Firewatch's environment art and skies and all these other things, what do you keep in mind when you think about like a player has walked through here before? How do I keep it fresh when they come back through?
So we want to make sure that it looks different from different directions, and also the lighting and the feel of the whole area has got to be different, so it seems like a totally new area.
Yeah, it was surprising to me how much, even if you're walking like just north to south through an area, if you go through it once and then if you go through it the next day, or a later part in the game and you and Ollie have just swung the sun 180 degrees, so all the shadows are going the other way, it can feel completely fresh. Or the obvious trick is make them go through it the opposite direction.
Yeah. But both things together really make a whole space feel like a totally new space.
Yeah, that was a thing that I think you and Ollie and I collectively tried really hard to do, is like keep the player walking in as many different directions at as many different times of day as we could, because we knew that the world was fixed. It's not...
Yeah, like we want to reuse areas, but also we don't want to feel like we're making people backtrack, right?
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
Hi, Jake.
Hey, Jane. In this garden surrounded by scary mannequins seems like a great place to talk about how you figure out perspective and scale when making a level.
Yeah, so, when you start making a game, one of the first things you need to do is to have scale reference. So what we did was just download a bunch of free scale models, actually.
Yep, just some royalty-free, T-posed nude men and women.
I think like the man is just the default ZBrush man.
Before you put in the trees and before you put in the grass and before you put in the rocks, when all you have is terrain, it can look like it's like a 6-foot wide hallway or it's like a quarter-mile wide and you can't even tell in first person. But then once, boop, there's just a little nude man out there.
Yeah.
You really know.
Yeah, how tall is this tree? Oh my gosh, it's actually, it's a really tall tree.
Yeah,
it looks tiny before you put the scale man in.
So there's also, you'll notice there's a collection of different scale men out here. When we first dropped our scale our scale people in, they came in with some default material that was like this glistening onyx stone.
I think the default Unity material back then was just some very glossy black.
Yeah, so we had these like just rippling, glistening stone statues, including parts.
Full anatomy.
There were some parts that were very good at catching the light, and I think when Nels was grayboxing,
the bikini part.
Yeah, Nels was like, I got to get in real close on some parts of this level, and I just don't know about this. So then the next day when we got latest,
it's very distracting when the gloss material is.
It's debatable though if that's more or less distracting than the jean shorts that were slapped on. It feels to me, Jane, like in early dev, as you got bored, you just kept like festooning the scale man with more stuff.
I think it was one of those times when I was like, is it worth spending 15 minutes to make myself happy?
Yes.
And I was like, yes.
And then
it's
like
worth 15 minutes
maybe
to put
some more time to
jorts
add some love handles and then like some heart-shaped chest hair. Who's to say? Who's to say?
15 minutes turned into 30 minutes of fun, and now,
Oh man, by the end of the production,
It's
Greybox
so
thing
worth
was
it.
really fun. Or like you'd know that there was someone was in there working because you would just see all these like love-handled jorts, Henry chest hair dudes floating all over the place.
I think my favorite part is also when you've done level designing a space. Sometimes you've lifted the terrain without lifting the scale men. So sometimes once in a while I'm like, why is this area kind of not performing great? And I look under the earth and there's like four
just
buried
floating
men underneath. And I'm like,
fine.
oh, thanks, Jake. Delete.
It's fine. Yeah.
Those are my favorite little Jake surprises.
It's good, or like you'll see.
Hi, it's
did
Jane
not
again.
mean for
So
that to
Nels, what is a controlled burn?
A controlled burn is actually a technique that real wildland firefighters use. They actually have these amazing things called drip cans, which are basically like Tin Man oil can, except they're just full of like extremely flammable fluid and they're always on fire. So yeah, it's awesome. So basically firefighters will dig a bunch of like fire breaks and then use these drip cans to light a bunch of small controlled fires to burn out all the flammable materials in an area that that a big like proper uncontrolled wildfire is approaching, so that when the fire, due to the wind or whatever, gets to that area is already burned, so the fire can't keep spreading kind of past where that burn was. So in the case in the game right here, the idea is that the firefighter crew burned out all the fuel right next to the river so that the fire couldn't be blown basically across the river. That the hope is between the controlled burn and the river itself, the fire wouldn't actually spread all the way up to Two Forks and beyond. As you will discover later in the game, they did not succeed at that. As is often the case in the real world, fires are nothing if not unpredictable.
In terms of technically how we achieve this, basically we have a pre-burn sector that is all lush and beautiful, full of trees that you cannot push through, so it works great as a gate. And after the controlled burn in the story, we swapped the whole area, this whole piece, including the ground and all the trees in it, with a new piece of artwork, basically, to the post-burn sector, which lets the player walk right through.
It's interesting that like there's kind of this baseline of the world, and then there are these almost just two chunks just sitting right on top of it.
The world is kind of made of tiles in a way, so like we have the option to swap different tiles in and out, and this is a great place to use that technology.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Oh, yeah, no, it's so great. Totally, 100%. Sorry, I don't know what I was doing there. Gimme.
thing that is great about Pork Pond, other than it is called Pork Pond, which is a wonderful thing to say. You want to say it?
Pork Pond.
Pork
Pond.
Pork Pond.
It's not even really
Pond.
a pond.
It's barely a pond.
It's like a pork puddle, really.
It's pork puddle. It may have been a pond at one point. Later, dear player, hopefully you noticed that there is a pork pond sign in Delilah's lookout tower.
Yep.
After Delilah has told you, if you talk about pork pond, that people just keep stealing the sign.
And
So
how
that's
it
why
looks
there's no
great
sign.
in like a den or
A den, or
a
right in
lookout
front of
cabin,
me.
really.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that was really fun about making this game with such a small team, is that I named Pork Pond after my girlfriend's dog, Pork Belly, who I like very much. He has a Japanese chin, and he is very weird. And then I wrote the goof about the sign not being there because there wasn't a sign. And then the next thing I knew, someone said, "Oh, it should be in Delilah's lookout." I don't know if that was you, Jane, but that's the sort of thing you would do. Is you'd be like, "I was playing the game, and I felt like that Pork Pond sign should be in Delilah's
Like
tower."
if I were Delilah, I would have totally stolen it.
Exactly right. So then we just say yes, and we keep putting goofs into the game. So that is the Ballad of Pork Pond.
Pork Puddle Pond.
Pork Puddle Pond. I like this is our only tape together.
I know.
And it was just us saying Pork Pond about 15 or 20 times. Pork Pond.
Oh, hello. What do we got over here? What is this now? I don't know, but I want to monkey with it. Can I monkey?
Hi, this is Will.
And this is James again.
And if you look around, you should see a TV in front of you with a pretty weird looking image on it. That is actually what Henry looks like from third person. So you're looking at Henry as we saw him in Unity Editor.
Yeah, Henry is very much sort of an ultimate Cronenberg nightmare. He's got sort of like, we called them the spider bones, where you can stretch his shoulders really far away from his torso. Early on, I remember looking at a GIF with the team of like how Crysis was doing their first-person stuff, and if you looked at it, you could sort of see his spine and neck becoming this mad giraffe creature. And we took that concept and ran with it. So we ended up sort of like almost any animation in the game, if you look at it from outside of the exact angle we want you to, it would completely destroy immersion and you'd be horrified and possibly sick.
Fair. A little scary. It's cool though. Like, even if I haven't been talking that much, I mean, I'm not trying to talk over the commentary, but like, I just find everything, like the whole thing, fascinating. But of course, I don't have a head. Even though technically I do, just not right now.
Coming up here on the end, Jacob.
Yes, Sean?
Henry and Delilah are talking, and then there's a clatter, and you realize there's just been an open third line on their conversation. And I remember coming up with this, or something like this, I think in my living room before we had an office in the summer and fall of 2013.
Yeah, the idea that you hear someone like cough over the radio seems like the sort of thing that got us really excited when we were in like day zero of talking about making Firewatch.
Yeah, we had another idea back in the lakeside of this day, the beginning of this day, where you would hear a conversation coming out of a radio nearby, but just the way our audio system worked and like the peculiarities of trying to get that to work just never really read to the player when people would play it. But we had all these moments. This is sort of like the way we think about the design of a story like this in general, for better or for worse, at least this game, where we would sit down and just pitch each other all these moments that were really disconnected once we had a conceit, like there's somebody listening to you on the radio, like, oh, a guy punches you out, like, oh, you hear your voice coming from a bush, which we didn't end up using.
You rip your bed apart and find a bug under the mattress.
Oh my God!
Someone was listening in your tower.
Yeah, we were gonna bug the tower.
I think we actually had a bulletin board up in the office full of tiny Post-it notes that were just cool ideas,
cool story things.
And if we could find a place for them, we'd pull them off that and put them on the linear list of like Crypt Path events.
Yeah, there's things that we could just sort of like put as little like mile markers in the story, and not knowing how you would get to them because you'd play your own way. But if we had enough of those in the story that were surprising, then maybe you, player, would like it.
It's about how we're supposed to report any damage to our bosses or university officials.
University?
Because they're doing some sort of study. It's a research site. So, the question is, what do we think they're studying?
Us. They're researching us.
You think they're studying you and me?
I do, yeah. I mean, maybe it's about studying two strangers who talk every day.
Like, if you put someone in isolation with someone else, what they do.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Sure.
Well, fuck that.
Agreed.
I think we should allow for the possibility that this is all just a big misunderstanding, but... God, if you saw what you said you did... Fuck, Henry.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay. So what's next?
Just on my way back, in and out of trees in the middle of nowhere.
Do you see anybody?
No, definitely not.
All right. So, tell me what you think of this.
Nope.
Did you just cough?
No. Did you just cough?
I didn't.
No.
We're fucked.
Oh,
fuck.
There isn't any way someone, like, another lookout could be on this line, is there?
No. Not without tapping our radios. Get in your tower, shut the door. Don't leave, and don't use your radio. I'll call you. Understand? I will call you.
You got it, Delilah. Man, I'm just trying to look at special features, dude. I really don't want to die over this. I don't. God. But hey, I mean, we're getting through it. Day 77. I got a couple of days left. I'm still salty. I'm still salty about the intro, though. I'm wondering... Oh, could it have been where I found Turk originally?
Calling you for the... Oh,
because I tried that on day one and it didn't work. That's what it was.
The flapjack fire continues to move in a southerly fashion. Delilah, for fuck's sake, answer your radio.
Hello, sunshine. Sorry,
hello.
I went out for a little bit.
Hold
What
on.
can I do you for?
Hold on. Calm down. No, don't throw it. Don't throw it. I want to keep it. Thank you. And I also want to do this, because this is what I got to do. Gimme.
Hello, Chris.
Hey, Jake.
Good to see you on this
I know.
commentary.
It's been a little while.
So earlier, in a long time through Firewatch's development, the way that Day 76 used to end was with Delilah just basically freaking out. She and Henry got that call from Goodwin and just basically said, "Oh shit," and it ended on an ambiguous panic. It turned out that actually put people in the situation you are in now at the start of Day 77, not knowing what to do. Like, we cut in with Henry at his desk sitting there, and everyone who played the game sort of thought, why is Henry just sitting at his desk when the last thing that happened was a huge freak out? And we rewrote it to be what you're seeing here, where Delilah actually says at the end of the day, sit where you are, don't do anything, wait for me to call. And then when it cuts and Henry's sitting in his chair, it makes sense. And I know that sounds completely obvious and maybe even dumb, that we did not initially have Delilah tell you to do what we then depict you doing.
Well, I think one of the reasons is because so much... This speaks to one of the biggest challenges, honestly, in designing the narrative for this game, which is a first-person game that also skips time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in a movie, when a movie skips time, you can have the characters have done all sorts of things, and the viewer can catch up on that later, and there's tension in not knowing what happened in the missing time. You can't really have that stuff get filled in for the player character because you are that character.
Yeah,
and
even if there's cinematic cut time, your motivation as a player is a continuous line across the game, and obviously doesn't have a time skip unless you, the player, save,
Exactly.
walk away, and come back.
Yeah.
Realizing that we had to write Delilah to bridge that moment, it was a really good concrete example that stuck out to me of sort of how the story and your expectation as a player and your sort of motivation to keep going have to line up as well as they do.
This scene was another big challenge because that whole chain of her getting you to Cottonwood Creek by way of this sort of ruse that she sets up, there were a lot of players we found who figured out what she was getting at before you actually went through all the little steps and immediately said, "Oh,
Cottonwood Creek," and they left. And then Delilah was like, "Tell me when you see the thing on the poster."
Yeah.
And then
Yet another big challenge of how to sync up player intention and awareness with character intention and awareness. Really big challenge in this game overall.
Anyway, look at that poster.
No, I don't want to look at the poster because I already know where to go. Kind of. Wait, hold on. I lied. Okay, so That one is, yes. Okay, so I do need to do you first. I just needed to make sure. Come on, come on, come on. Gimme, 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 gimme. No, thank you.
Hello. My name is Cable Sasser. I am the co-founder of a company called Panic here in sunny Portland, Oregon. With me is
Stephen Frank. I'm the other co-founder of Panic. And what are we doing here by this snowmobile?
Why are we by a snowmobile, Steve? You see, the Snowbro logo on the snowmobile is our one content contribution to the game of Firewatch. Jake asked me to design that logo, and I did. And I think we can safely say this game would not have shipped if it weren't for that logo. That's not true at all. I'm very sorry. Steve, what is Panic?
Well, Panic is a company that makes Mac software that we started back in 1997 or so. And, of course, recently we've done iPad and iPhone software as well.
Sure.
And we were approached by Camposanto to see if we wanted to fund a video game. So how exactly did we get involved in that?
Good question. We made one of the first MP3 playing apps for the Mac called Audion, and as was the style at the time, being the late 90s, you could make your own skins or interfaces for it. One guy made some really cool skins, and his name was Jake Rodkin. And Jake Rodkin, of course, went on to Telltale Games. We kept in touch with him. Him and Sean Vanneman left to try to make their own game. They came to us. We said, I think we have a little bit of money in the bank. We can maybe help you out with this. And it worked. We're here, and we made this game that you're in right now. Our contribution was primarily financial, but we also put on a really cool event for GDC, which was this super themed, we got to pretend that we were Imagineers kind of thing. We did some QA, we sort of were sounding board on ideas, and we also did Photodome. It was an incredible experience for us to get a taste of what it was like to make a game through these guys, and we've always been curious about that world. And it turns out the gaming market is kind of awesome, and a lot of people play video games, probably way more than buy professional Mac utility software. And games affect people in ways that our current software doesn't affect people. You know, you get fan art, you get these incredibly emotional fan letters about how this game touched people. It has been incredibly rewarding for us to work on this thing. So that leads to my next question, Steve. Would you do this again?
Oh, absolutely. I want to see what the sequel to Firewatch is. It's going to be a snowmobile racer, probably.
Yeah, I think you do trick jumps.
Henry versus Delilah.
Oh my God.
Well, it don't exist, friends.
Can we throw Sonic in there too?
Gotta have Sonic.
And Cream the Rabbit.
Yeah,
I'll cut that part.
Okay.
Thank you for playing Firewatch. We are happy to have been a part of this game. We hope that you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed being a part of making it.
Thank you.
Good night.
What?
Sean here. Hey, Jake.
Hey, Sean. The hike to Cottonwood Creek.
The one you are ostensibly on right now.
It is a thing that changed a couple of times in the game, and it was actually one of the bigger spatial changes that we made over the course of Firewatch. The place called Cottonwood Creek on the map is now in, due south of the middle of the map, but it actually used to be north of the lake. If you ever head over there, you'll notice there's a lot of cottonwood trees there. There's cottonwood trees in both places.
It was originally where we ended up with it, though. It started where we are now.
And then we had a crisis of conscience somewhere in the middle of the game, and what is actually walking around in Firewatch fun? Should we condense everything down?
Is the core mechanic of the game fun? Oh no, hedge.
You hit a point in development sometimes where you question these things, and we said, is this going to be too big of a deal? Do we want to put Cottonwood Creek right next to the research site? And we did it, and it was still pretty good. But I think as all the pieces laid out into the game, once the music started coming in, once a lot of the sort of incidental, ancillary conversations started coming in, we were able to sort of breathe a big sigh of relief and go, oh, it is all the stuff, all of these parts seem to be working. And then we went, oh, all those parts are working, and we made Cottonwood Creek 3 inches away from the research site gate. Put it back, and it was a pretty quick change to put it back.
Yeah,
but
it was very quick to put back. But I had a panic attack because I realized that having everything so condensed when Cottonwood Creek was over by the lake just totally hamstrung my ability to get in some of the dialogue that happens here. And I think this stuff's actually really important to the story and the character development of these two people. And I think with 10 weeks left in development, maybe even less, it was a very short runway, I went to Jane and Jake and I was like, I think we have to move Cottonwood Creek back. and then beads of sweat appeared, and then they thought about it for a second and went, yeah, okay, I think it's not going to be that big of a deal. Because I had already been like, it's not going to be that big of a deal. We can just... And it was fine.
It turns out that what it took was me literally picking up the cash box by the lake and the cash box by Cottonwood Creek and doing like the little magician like shell game swap, and then I changed the labels on the map.
And it worked.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to pick up the radio because what I've always loved about this choice, which I'm not saying right now, but maybe in the future I might do like a proper wrong playthrough of Firewatch, because like I said a little bit earlier, I mean, I guess I picked a couple of the options already, even though you can't really hear it, but like, you can make Henry a dick, but you can also bypass certain things. You can do things, and Delilah, like, what the hell are you doing? Or like, when I was up at Bear 2 Point, she like, hey, look, you're walking down from Bear, did you find anything? And then you're like, yeah, the wire's cut. She's like, what the hell? Report that? Come on. You know, she gets so mad when you don't grab the new radio, which I'm not
Hey, it's Sean.
Hey, it's Chris. Here in this Cottonwood Creek area where you have to get the new walkie-talkie that Delilah has planted for you, or had planted for you, it is possible to just never pick it up in the first place, go straight over to the research site. And that's in part because it's in a game like this where we aren't constraining your movement. There isn't really anything we can do to force the player to walk to a certain place and do a certain thing before going to a different place. We would have to put up some kind of infinite wall or something between you and the research site to stop you just going straight there. And we didn't really want to do that. We thought about it, and we really could not think of a good reason to do so.
Which then meant that the entire research site scene had to be written, had to be bifurcated, and then written to support the new radio versus not having the new radio. And that was really hard. And then had to be like logically programmed to support both those things. And the way a lot of the branching sort of dialogue stuff works in a game like this, it's not like a choose your own adventure where you go to a different chapter. It's really, the game is looking line by line through the hundreds of lines that it takes to for the characters to communicate their stuff while in the research site. It's going line by line and playing the truest one. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the lines are shared across has new radio versus doesn't have new radio state. It's jumping in between ideas that both hit upon and changing Delilah's response most of the time. And playing through that and finding those spots and writing with that level of detail and branching is really hard. And we would probably find a new way to do it in the future.
Maybe, yeah. No, it's hard to say. We tried hard to think of a way around it, and we really couldn't. And it affected everything. It affected writing. Here's a weird one. It affected music, because if you go all the way to the research site without getting the new radio, typically when you have the new radio and you go into the research site, there's this music that kicks in. What if you go to the research site without getting the new radio, not because you were intending to skip that part of the game, but because you just wanted to go check it out, to doing the video game exhaustive thing of like, I'm going to check every place before I do the thing, but I'm going to go back and get the radio and then do it. How do we read your intent? How do we as the designers know I'm intending to skip that part of the game? I'm not intending. Do I start the music cue? Do I not? There were a lot of different areas where we had to just take our best guess basically about, well, if this and this and this, but not that, like, we think this is what the player means to do, and we're going to support that. And that was just something that we constantly had to live with throughout development.
Listen, I think about weird shit like that too while I'm gaming. Like, there are plenty of times where I'm like, I wonder if I can go straight there, and I wonder if I can do this, I wonder if I can take this way. Like, I'm always looking for shortcuts, but I'm always trying to play the game correctly at the same time. It's always fun trying to figure all that shit out. Okay, anyway.
Hey, it's Jake again.
Hey, Jake.
And Sean.
Hey, everyone.
And we had a design for this tape, but I don't remember what it was.
Well, then you're completely in the spirit of our stupid design process.
Ah, yes. That's what this tape is about, the design process for Firewatch.
It's really bad to admit this, like, on a recording that we're releasing.
But you purchased this game, so you're inside.
And if you played this, you already completed it, so you know that we nonetheless finished a game. one of the big things that we constantly ran into on the design side on this game was, okay, how do we reconcile this like linear story that needs to be told with something that is allows some degree of player exploration and choice and like a big world that we tried hard to not just like hard gate absolutely everywhere. But that meant we had to come up with a lot of just weird creative solutions to why you had to go to a certain place or why you couldn't go to this place. And frequently we would forget what those
We'd forget why it happened. For instance, the commentary Firewatch audio tour document says that this node should lie on day 15, and I'm sure that we had a really hilarious and apropos reason for why this remark should happen on day 15.
Oh, we had a very, very great, very strong design idea for day 15 that tied a bunch of stuff together that didn't get written down coming out of a meeting and was lost to the...
Oh, and we all laughed about it when we sat down to
brain.
record this commentary node, and it's perfect that this is on day 15. So I'm sure you as a player, this is like the most perfectly timed conversation or moment in the commentary to hear about this, but we don't know why that is.
But because like content games like Firewatch are designed around ideas and sort of loose concepts oftentimes, as opposed to systems with hard rules, it's easy to forget the decisions you made, and then when you do, you agonize over the perfect solution you kind of remember having for days until you finally just let it go and move on and come up with something else.
You have to you have to trust that if you blow it up and come up with something else, it will probably be functionally about as good as the reason that you forgot.
I mean, I think there are probably parts in this game that we redesigned 3 times, and I think what ended up happening was we sort of internalized all of the requirements of each of those particular things so often that it gave us a better understanding of the whole game, which is maybe just a horrible justification for
We got very good at
being
anatomy
bad.
by reopening up our patient over and over and
Right.
over again
Right.
and looking at
That's
his
exactly
insides.
correct, yeah. Yep.
Yes.
So enjoy the result of our stupid labor.
Man, I bet people won't even be on day 15 when they hear this in the final commentary.
Who's gonna tell him? Who's gonna tell? Because it ain't gonna be me. It's not. No.
Hi, Jake here.
Hi, Jake.
So I guess we're going to talk about Crime by the Numbers, a crime series.
Yeah, I think this came from the desire to make a very video gamey sort of collectible series. That's something that you could collect across the course of the game, and also my desire to just design book covers because I wanted to.
Yeah, I think that you did a first batch of book covers, and it was Stephen's Room and the J. Allard self-help
Birds
book,
of Wyoming
Birds of Wyoming, and it had Death Strikes at 2, and we all decided as a group in a stupid loud meeting that took up the whole office that it would be hilarious if this was in fact one of like the Sue Crafton alphabet murders or the
Dick Francis horse racing
every single one is
series.
about a jockey who is killed.
Well, we thought that our idea for a series was somewhat like ridiculous, but then realized that Dick Francis had written over 40 crime stories about horse racing. So
and it seems like just between office conversations and long walks home from the office, we came up with all 10 of these, and then you drew them.
Yes, that's exactly how
the
it
end.
happened. The end, but people seem to like them. We've seen people trying to collect all of them across the course of the game.
You get no achievement for collecting all of them.
Sadly.
Yeah. For jerks.
Hold on. This is more important to me. Hold on. I want to hear it first. Maybe. Can't I? Oh, does that not happen right now? I thought that... Oh, fine. I swear it happens, because she freaks out, because she's like, why didn't you get the radio? I told you to...
This is Jared Emerson Johnson from Bay Area Sound, and I did a lot of the sound design for the game under Chris's supervision.
And it's Chris again.
So we just want to talk a little bit about the Foley and the interactive elements of the sound design for the game. For the most part, I would say like 95% of the time we're recording all of that originally for the game, rather than relying on library sounds and stuff, which, often is the case.
Yeah, and we actually started off using a lot more library sounds, and we ended up redoing almost all of those of that implementation because, Jared, I'm curious to know how you felt about this, but I just felt that that stuff was too big and punchy for this game. You know, we were telling a game that was so much about this human scale drama and in some cases ambiguity, and then also just very naturalistic in how the wilderness was presented, that it seemed almost like putting too fine a point on it to have sort of traditionally big and punchy Foley and sound effects behind it.
Right, yeah. We call it gamey sound design, which is usually a little bit larger than life and big. And you know, sometimes that's important because the player needs the feedback of
when you get punched out by Goodwin. There's a couple moments of like that big outrageous sound design when it's really called for.
For this, we went really subtle on a lot of it. You know, you still get the feedback, you still get that feeling like you're actually in the space and interacting with it, but it's a little more subtle, a little more tailored. And honestly, like, when you have an opportunity to record live Foley, it always ends up being better than a library sound. You know, even in the big gamey games.
Oh, sure.
And so, for all that, we just went out and, you know, either went out to a fence and recorded a fence, or, you know, I got out my backpack and just spent several hours just getting every kind of little rustle and clank of the carabiner.
I think you gave me like hundreds of different.
Well, and you know, of course, you're not going to use all of them, but you know, you need to be able to find exactly
I sifted
the right.
through every single one and found the ones that matched the animation like as closely as I possibly could. It was
what really mattered to me as I was playing the game and we were talking back and forth was really making it, you know, when you are interacting with something in the game, when you're moving a fence or opening a door, entering a new space, that it really feel like you're there, because so much of the game is just walking around and talking. So when you actually get a chance to pick something up or interact with it, I wanted it to feel kind of special.
As development of the game went on and it became clear that sound effects and ambience were going to have to do so much of the heavy lifting, it was incredibly intimidating for me as a first-time audio director, but I'm ultimately actually really grateful for that because it was just so intrinsic to the game and had such a big impact on the overall experience.
Yeah, and honestly, with every new game, there's a certain amount of kind of reinventing that needs to happen because you have to, you know, you just have to keep playing the game, put the sounds in. Okay, these ones work, these ones don't work, play the game again. You know, we probably did that, I don't know, like 20, 30 times over the course of the production. Just, okay, this is working. Oh, no, this has changed, so now we need a new thing. And that's how you make a thing that feels good in the end, so.
There you go.
I'm in their main tent.
Henry, what the fuck are you doing? They can hear us.
I don't care. Well, there's nobody here. It's just tents and equipment, and that's it.
Please, Henry, just go where I told you to. Please, go there right now.
This place it feels like there's bad shit afoot, you know? It's sterile, dead.
God damn it, Henry. Fine. I left you a new radio, damn it, but to hell with it. Just do whatever you want.
Oh, I'll go get it.
You know what? Forget it. We've danced around it so much now, it's probably gone. But maybe you'll luck out and whoever's listening to us ran down to the market for a gallon of milk.
I'm not sorry.
Hey, Jake.
Hey, Chris.
So over the course of Firewatch's development, I think swung back and forth pretty wildly in terms of how much we wanted to play up the conspiracy part of the story and how explicit we wanted to make Goodwin's involvement and how much we wanted the player to buy into it versus how much we wanted the player to think this was sort of all in Henry's head or played up between Henry and Delilah. And the research site was really the moment in the game where
there's definitive proof something is happening, whatever it is.
We obviously knew as the developers of the game that the reality of the situation was a little bit sadder and more mundane. I think we kind of wanted there to be this big moment that suggests, oh, maybe this is something really huge.
Yeah,
I think we got carried away a little bit.
Yeah, I think we arguably / probably did. And thinking back to it now, the reason that the typed reports came into the story at all, as you said about the pendulum going back and forth, I think we didn't like the story being 100% ambiguous. We didn't also, I don't know if we knew that we could support a world where Henry and the player and Delilah 100% construct a reality that doesn't have a single shred of proof. And we're like, okay, well, we got excited about maybe it's the 70s conspiracy moment of like, you know, you're in a room full of whirring machines.
I think we on the team kind of kind of hyped ourselves up in the same way Henry and Delilah do. I mean, I remember when I first the first draft of the music that you're hearing right now, I showed it to you only, I think, because I felt too stupid to show it to anyone else, because I'm like, this is so ridiculous. We can't put this in our game.
Well, the one when
and you were like, oh, maybe we should put it in our game.
I don't know. Henry's gone nuts. Everyone's gone nuts.
It's true. We're all going nuts.
Maybe it could have been pulled back a little bit on all fronts from what you're observing right now, but maybe it's the best. Maybe it's for the best.
Could be. Could be.
I don't. I didn't. This is insane. I'm so sick of letting these people do this to us.
Hi, this is Jane. I'm back again, and now I'm here with...
Will Nunes. I was a prop artist.
And this is one of the few areas in Firewatch where it's not just about trees and rocks. So we wanted to make sure that this area feels very man-made, and that is spooky and is ambiguous. Like, the goal here is that you're gonna get here and you're not quite sure if this is like a surveillance operation or if it's scientific, and that's kind of what I told Will when we were trying to make a lot of props, and Will was really great about it. And I was just like, hey Will, can you please just make a bunch of boring scientific equipment?
Yeah, I mean, we were actually just looking up a lot of stuff, like, stuff that monitored, thermal energy and stuff like that, like very, very standard kind of scientific equipment, but arranged it in kind of a sense that made it look kind of a little more eerie and a little more cluttered and haphazard and not really definable from someone that didn't really understand what this equipment was.
Yeah, I think if you actually look up each prop, that they actually are real, like, equipment, right?
Yes, I used reference from the late 80s for a lot of this equipment. They're all real equipment that people use to stop wind or environment, stuff like that.
Is there like a favorite piece of prop in this tent, Will?
I would say the equipment. Just it's really simple, but I had a lot of fun making it and kind of seeing the layout and kind of trying to convey this kind of eerie looking equipment, doing something you're not quite sure what it's about, ambiguously, technical, and seeing where I could take it and seeing kind of, with the colors and the mood and how that would all fit together and how to fit that scene right.
It's burning like hell over there. Tell me you did not start it.
It was one cigarette, Delilah. Jesus. I'm not going to jail because...
Tell me you did not start it.
Not intentionally, no.
What if you did?
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Calm down, Delilah. That's crazy.
It was Forrest
Byrnes.
Byrnes.
He wouldn't do that. Would he, Henry?
Nope. Wasn't me. I'm innocent.
What the hell do I do?
I don't know. What do you do? Nothing.
You know what? Screw it. I'm leaving it and we'll see what happens. And I'm gonna try to get us out of here by... Well, I'm gonna try. Over and out.
You got it. Does this make me a bad person? Probably, but it needed to be done, guys. It was a controlled burn. I have no idea what I'm doing, so it's fine. Now what? This better be the part 2 the thing was talking about, because I don't know. Yes? Sit. Oh, go away with you, damn it. Bastard!
And here we are, I'm Nels, once again, and we're talking to Jake about Henry's crazy conspiracy board.
Yes, it's the conspiracy board time.
This first appears after you go to the research site and discover a bunch of crazy stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what was, what did you actually want the player to, be thinking about when this thing just kind of shows up?
We wanted the idea that Henry had stayed up all night just... When you get to the research site and you start feeling like maybe this conspiracy exists, when you think maybe there is a conspiracy, we wanted to take all of the pickups that you'd sort of been idly grabbing throughout the game, all the sort of documents and notes, and then putting them up on the board, as if Henry stayed up all night trying to find connections between things. There are very few, but we wanted to sort of represent to the player all the stuff that you have been doing, and now that you know that there is in fact someone out there listening to you and watching you, do you want to reassess all the things you've been picking up in a new light? Also, it just gives a nice aesthetic change to the tower, right? It just fills it fills the room up with a bunch of garbage and makes Henry look like maybe he's going a little nuts.
Early in the game, we kind of had this, like way when we were like barely kind of, we had this notion that you'd find stuff out in the world and you could basically pick up and keep like almost anything. And then all this stuff you found would have this like home in your tower. And we kind of like, for a variety of reasons, kind of carved back on that idea a little bit, but it ended up instead kind of becoming this, right?
Yeah, because the only thing that you can really reliably keep in Firewatch in the shipping version and that has a UI associated with it is notes and documentation. Like those go into the notes screen, you can read them there, and then it seemed like having all of that stuff sort of barf back out of the inventory into the world all at once when your perspective on the story changes was a cool way to handle that. It was also a way to remind people of all of the things that were out in the world that they had found, like to remind them of missing people flyers, to remind them that they'd found a little bit of stuff from the Goodwins, to remind them about Ron and Dave and about the research site. Like you could always, at the start of days, at the end of the game, go and refer to all of the written sort of evidence that the story had left behind so far.
Yeah, not only does a whole bunch of stuff that you optionally pick up show up here, but even after the board shows up the first time, still things that you find on the night of day 77 and day 78 also get added in here. So it even continues to get bigger as the days move on, even after it first shows up, right?
Yep. And then he goes home and is sad.
Nels, it's the spooky nighttime scene.
So spooky. Impossibly spooky.
Coming up with this scene was funny because the bag that is in the little grove here is known, I think, definitely internally, I don't know if this is in the game, but as the bug-out bag.
Oh, it is definitely the bug-out bag. This is what actual hardcore survivalists call their, oh man, if the nukes hit New York City, I can grab my 2 bug-out bags, they're in my closet, throw them in the back of my pickup, and drive immediately within 12 minutes of the air raid siren or whatever.
Yeah, and it's funny because we wanted it to tell a really sort of a nuanced story that didn't hit you over the head with exposition.
Yes.
And I think the bug-out bag is probably a little confusing.
It might have been a bit too nuanced.
It's definitely confusing upon first discovery. This is Ned Goodwin's bug-out bag, which is the heat's getting too close. I've gone too deep. This Henry and Delilah charade, and I'm gonna have to leave really soon.
Yeah.
So if Henry gets too close, I'm just rappelling down, scurrying over to get this bag, and I'm out. Yep. And I might as well wire it to a battery for the effort, so if it gets discovered, I know that it's gone.
Exactly.
I don't get led into a trap.
And this is things that, like, actual, weirdo hermit people that live in the woods, like, this is actually a thing that they'll have. They'll have, like, their main campsite, but then if their main campsite is discovered, they have, like, another second supply cache where they can just grab their stuff and disappear. And it just happened to be that Goodwin, for sentimental or other reasons, was keeping the key to the cave on this backpack. He didn't like in any way leave it for Henry intentionally. It just happened to be that the weird electronics on it also got picked up by the wave receiver, and then what was meant to be like Goodwin's safety net backup thing is actually what is his ultimate undoing.
Yeah, and there's an article in a GQ magazine that I think you'll probably be talking about later, Nels, written by a reporter named Michael Finkel about this hermit who lived in Maine.
Christopher Thomas Knight.
It's a wonderful, wonderful long read. You can find it online. Again, it's GQ magazine, and I plumbed this thing for inspiration for Goodwin and how he would set up his camp and what he would do if he thought he was going to get caught. And it was an idea that I know went into my notebook upon reading this article. It's really great, and it's really wonderful reporting from Michael Finkel.
They don't have a monopoly on being spooked.
Oh. Well, you're back in your tower. Maybe you need a drink, too.
I'm not in my tower.
I am looking at a man standing in your lookout. And it's not you.
Yeah.
It is not me.
It's probably Byrnes.
Oh my God, go.
I'm going.
Okay, can I try this again? Why will it not let me...
So I love this little bit of writing and acting here where Delilah is drunk.
I
It's
too
adorable.
love it now. I love it now. Yeah, there was a big rewrite at one point. This scene was originally... Delilah was just sort of in hunker down mode. Don't go outside. We're gonna let all this blow over. And that's exactly what we don't want you to do. And you have a good relationship with her. At least you have some warmth to her, perhaps. And it just didn't really work as written and as recorded. So just sort of had the idea, got to the point where it's like, well, I want to change that. And the first idea was, and she's drunk. And I'd always thought that Delilah probably overindulged. I don't think she's an alcoholic or anything.
Sure.
But neither is Henry. But they both drink and have, probably had drunken nights that they really, really regret. Being able to bring that into the game just felt completely correct. But then recording it was so tough. Cissy Jones landed in just a perfect place. But when you write, your character is drunk, you get a lot of you get a lot of hiccupy, hobo. And we just sort of, you sit down and you just take 5 and you talk about it and you just kind of go
get her drunk.
Yeah, get her loaded and go on. No, we spent probably a good half an hour, maybe an hour, just coming at the drunk lines from different angles.
Yeah.
And then, it snaps in your headphones in real time in a way that then produces the feeling that you're talking about, Chris, which is like, oh, I love this. It's cute and correct and right and, feels real and just does all the things it needs to do. But it makes me laugh. But Cissy nailed it.
And as a note, this was one of, I think, only 2 remaining parts in the game on the design side that are the survivors of a previous design where Delilah would reach certain thresholds where she would just cut you out of radio contact.
Yes.
And we kept 2 of them for sort of narrative reasons.
Sorry, I never got this dialogue option before, so I just wanted to...
Hey, I got turned around. Is that person still there?
No, he's gone.
I'll call you when I get back.
Huh, okay.
Hi there, it's Jake. I'm talking with Nels, and we are going to get into the wave receiver. I believe it is the Anderson wave receiver, in fact.
Oh, absolutely, Anderson brand.
Do you remember even where the wave receiver came from in Firewatch? I'm going to back up, because I know where the wave receiver actually came from, which is in the game Far Cry 2, you can hunt for diamonds using a little beepy handheld device that works basically like the wave receiver.
Correct.
But I can't remember what made us think that it was right for this game.
So it was primarily a functional thing where we realized that a lot of the kind of A to B to C structure of the game was basically Delilah saying, hey, Henry, you should go here. Oh, you're there. Now you should go here. And we wanted to have some other object element thing.
Yep, a thing that could lead you somewhere, but neither Henry or Delilah would know where you're going.
Yeah, and then it was like, oh, well, what about that diamond thing from Far Cry 2?
We already have the map from Far Cry 2. We should obviously also have the diamond hunting mechanic.
Correct, obviously. And then it was just kind of, as soon as the first prototype was in there, I was like, oh yeah, that will work and totally be good. So we can just make that increasingly real until we had an actual artifact in the world that you could wiggle around in your hand.
Oh, I miss the prototype version of the wave receiver in the gym, because that was our YouTube streamer friendly horror game version where once you sort of got closer and closer to the object, it was revealed to be a forest.
Sorry, hold on, I have an idea. Unless that's gonna turn... Oh no, I should have done this in the fucking beginning of... Fuck! Okay, well, I'm sorry. I was trying to...
That had come to life and was charging at you at high speed, like that.
Yeah, that was also my favorite.
That was good. I feel like the real in-game wave receiver could never deliver on the full potential of the maniacal, self-propelling Forrest Byrnes, screaming at you like a Serious Sam enemy or something. At least that was my imagined canonical Forrest Byrnes wave receiver sound. Was that?
That is actually exactly what it was. I took that sound off of from
that?
Serious Sam and put it in. Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah.
So that's how we got a wave receiver.
Just don't freak out, okay? Don't freak out.
Oh my god, what the fuck is happening, Henry?
Actually, that was pretty good timing, because that's the dialogue option I wanted to get that last time, and I was unable to do it because I was trying to let the timer run out as far as it could because she was like freaking out and getting worse and getting worse. And I was gonna like let it play that at the end, but then it was just like, no, you took too long. Now you don't get it. Which is fine. Yeah, it does sound pretty bad. Yeah, it does sound pretty bad. Yeah, that's not.
What's wrong?
Someone claiming to be Henry in Two Forks called a lookout in another sector early this morning and said that I knew what caused the Wapati Meadow fire. So, I just got off the horn with that lookout who's wondering what I know, or that I'm an arsonist, or that I'm fucking losing it. Furthermore, I bet you don't have the only tape of us from last night, so someone has evidence to back it up. We need to find out what someone's been keeping in that cave.
I'm going down there now.
We don't have a lot of time left out here, and if we don't find some fucking answers, when they lift us
Hi there, Jake here again.
And it's James again.
Let's talk about the beginning of day 78, because what we shipped was fairly straightforward. Henry listening to the tape recorder of the previous night's conversation. But in earlier versions of Firewatch, this was a lot more complicated. This was actually the day, or this morning was when Henry would discover a bunch of Brian Goodwin's stuff. His like peachy folder full of scribblings and homework and stuff was actually wedged into a drawer under Henry's desk, and he'd hit his head and it would fall out at the start of day 78 or earlier. Actually, we really liked the idea that players and Henry could find it at any time in the game up until this point, but it ended up creating this complete nest of madness, which you had to animate.
Yeah, because of these permutations of have you found the folder or not, and then needing a failsafe at a certain point to advance the plot along, there were lots of different versions of getting the folder, and it was very complicated as well because we were tying it into things like getting the cave key at the same time as getting the folder, and the animation itself ended up being like pouring through tons of documents because it was like a postcard and his homework and like physically opening this thing, which ended up being a little bit silly because you realize we've already built systems whereby you can pick objects up and inspect them, so why are we forcing like 4 of those in a row in a cutscene? So I must have done probably, 5 or 6 pretty distinct versions of this, and then we cut it completely.
The folder falls out, but then you pick it up, and then you read it, but then you found the keys. But what if you dropped the keys and then find the folder? Oh man, yeah. It was one of the biggest reliefs for me when we cut this and just put all of the folder stuff where it belongs in the world and the keys over on the backpack permanently. I was very worried that you would be sad that it was cut because it was so much animation work, but I feel like you were also relieved that it was finally just dead and buried and a superior version shipped.
Yes. The only thing I was ever sad about was we had a nice little interaction where you would grab keys, and for the first time in the game, a pickup would like fail and you sort of fumble the keys, right? And they go under the desk, which I always liked that animation. But what I will say is this. I have been making a Firewatch reel, and all this kind of stuff that got cut, I'm including it in the reel now, so I finally get to have my cake.
Rude.
Yeah, hold on. I want to see some, because there's a couple of things there that look weird, and I'm wondering if that's because they're in the cave, but I'm checking this way first, because I'm not missing anything, even though I just remembered that I can come up this way anyway, so I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm paranoid about missing some, okay? I'm not trying to bring it up again, but the thing in the beginning's got me all effed up. Even though, yeah, I need to stop being paranoid about some of these, though, because I feel like some of these are definitely in the cave.
Also, those girls turned up. Looks like you didn't kill them. Nobody did. They took some farmer's tractor for a joyride down in Riverton and landed in jail.
Damn it.
Those girls really did a number on you, huh?
Yep.
No, I'm glad they're not dead, but it also means that they weren't a part of what's going on.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. You just have to keep searching.
Yeah.
This thing is really getting on my nerves, by the way. The wave receiver. It's really, really getting on my nerves. Also, am I even going in the right fucking... Hold on. No. Unless that's one of the one... That, you know what? That could be one of the ones in the cave. And not gonna stop me from looking, though. I refuse. I will not hear no shenanigans here. I'll hear none of it. Okay, well, whatever. Who cares? Again, I'm literally just double checking because I know about the one that's up here by Hawk's Rest. Even though, damn it, see, I don't see it. No, no, no. Okay, see, I do it correctly now. Okay. Guys, thank you.
Something I like that came on a little later in development that you did, Nels, here is we are without the radio, and I like how that feels across like the broad swath of the game. I think it's really cool. But there are these sort of reflexive Henry comments to himself based on things you're looking at, and the way those are tuned throughout here are really nice. Player, I don't know if you've seen this, but when you're walking sort of in the upper level of the cave, you can look down and to the right and you can see Brian Goodwin's shoe. And when you sort of like zoom in on that, Henry will just call out to someone if it is someone down there, someone in the cave. And Nell sort of like concocted that and put them all in the game. And we wrote some lines that worked for it, and they're not all over the place, but I really like the way it made the cave feel.
Yeah, it's actually kind of one of my favorite moments in the game in terms of Henry's monologue too, because we conceivably, even though Delilah can't hear you, like we could have hooked up the same normal radio interaction to where like you could make these dialogue choices and Henry just either monologues to himself or like talks into the radio, even though we know Delilah can't hear him. But I don't remember. I might just like tried it on a whim. Maybe someone suggested it. I don't exactly remember. But just having those play automatically when you've been looking at a specific object or area of the cave for like anywhere between like half a second to 2 seconds, and then those kind of monologue moments show up, or when you perform a specific action like zooming, it feels very natural in a way that like little kind of auto monologue lines in games often don't. There's like a couple in the upper level of the cave and then a couple more down near the bottom when you actually find Brian's body. It was kind of a bummer that they came online so late and there aren't any other spots in the game where Henry doesn't have access to the radio, because I actually would have loved to have a few more of these in the game somewhere as well.
You're always thinking about like what design tools do I have to like change the pace or make you feel something different. And I don't think we realized they were a club we had in our bag until we'd sort of like laid the whole game before us, and we went like, oh, yeah, we really like these. Oh,
I know.
And Rich did such a good job performing them. It was just, yeah, they really worked for me in the game.
Yeah, they're quite good.
I don't know why that went on a lot longer than when the thing stopped, but no, I'm not trying to be weird right now. That one sounded louder than a lot of the other ones. So.
Hi, it's Jane again, here with...
Me, Jake. Hi.
Oh, hi, Jake.
So the way we work usually is that Jake will do a lot of the level design with grayboxing, and the cave is no different.
That's true. The cave is no different in that regard, but it is different in that it's ridiculous. Like the cave, Firewatch usually, when you're building it, you only have to worry about the floor, whereas the cave is a completely contained area. Like it's a cave. And I really wanted to take advantage of that, perhaps to an excessive degree. Like I really wanted the cave to feel like this snaking labyrinth that wove in and out of itself, and that you could see areas you were going to get to later from places you weren't at yet and stuff. But I had no idea if it would actually be allowed to exist inside of the rules of Firewatch until I handed it to you.
Well, the interesting thing about this cave is that, like, for example, this hole where the shoe is, you can actually see all the way down to where the body is.
Yeah, you can't quite see the body because you can't lean far enough in. But
but the spaces all are actually connected in a way that makes sense.
The cave is also actually exceptional in that I think it's the only place in Firewatch where we cheat space.
Yes.
There's a couple places in the cave where you drop off a ledge, and in the middle of Henry's drop animation, we just cut the camera and like blink you to another area that's like a few hundred meters farther away.
Yeah.
Because the cave ended up being so weirdly nested on itself. It ended up being this like compact ball of yarn to the point that it didn't actually get you all the way to Brian's hideout.
Yeah, and so like to like make the space make sense while not spending too much time making it, we just decided, hey, I guess by cheating it a little, it's okay. And I don't think people actually notice.
It also cuts your travel time down. Like people were spending a long time walking through it in the early version of the gray box. But
figuring out how to light the cave, because like video game lighting, yes, but you still have to make sure there are spots opening up to the sky so that because we need to make sure that Henry can go through this without a flashlight.
Right. But it's also nice and dramatic to have those little cracks of sunlight coming through. It looks nice.
Fun.
But like, think about those torches.
Yeah, that's true.
Spike walls.
Or underground lake. How about that?
Almost.
Almost made
Don't
it.
tell people about the lake.
Hey, it's Chris again.
Hey, it's Sean.
The entire Brian Goodwin saga changed absolutely massively, multiple times, really, over the course of the design and writing process. There was actually a previous design revision in which you as the player, through just various means, could like trigger the discovery of the existence of Brian Goodwin much earlier in the game, and we had to allow for like all these different possible branches of when you could find that out and when Delilah would tell you more information and so on and so on. And it became like a nightmarish possibility space that we really had to rein in.
It became just a very unwieldy story.
Yeah.
Inside of that story was the idea that Delilah didn't know who Brian Goodwin was.
Right.
She knew Ned Goodwin. He was a lookout who was out here, but did not know that he was here with his son because it was against the rules, and Ned had broken the rules by bringing his son out here. And from design side, that was not to mention there's the unwieldy nature of the being able to never find out who he is until the very end, or figuring out that there was a kid in your tower on day one. That was unwieldy. And then furthermore, we were running out of tools to communicate the story of Brian Goodwin, because the only thing we had was the discovery of objects, which felt very one note and very
it felt very like breadcrumby.
Exactly.
Like, oh, there's all this information you have to know in this order, so you're gonna find these things in that order, and there were too many of them, and it felt completely contrived.
And this is just a design philosophy. I think this is like a good story design philosophy, a good mechanics design philosophy. When something just isn't working, is just ask yourself what happens if the opposite is true. I'll just say, okay, so what are the things that are true? Delilah didn't know there's a kid in the tower. I was like, well, what if she did? And not only did, she liked him. Oh my gosh, well that makes the emotional payload of finding Brian Goodwin like much more intense. And then once we had that, we had another design tool to like communicate about who Brian Goodwin was to you.
And that tool was the one tool we had for communicating information
anywhere else than finding something, and Henry going, we doubled the amount of information we could get to you, and it just made the game much more easy. It opened up the game from a story side, and it made us not have to constrain ourselves with that branching craziness of not knowing who he was and breadcrumbing you around the world.
And in doing so, it sort of simplified that total arc and allowed us to pack a lot more information into each of those deliveries. So when you find Brian's backpack, when you find his hideaway, each of those is like very information dense because we just consolidated it all to those zones.
And can reference the stuff you've learned along the way. So when you do find him, you actually feel like he's a human being who had a history and a life and a personality and stuff. I'm really glad we got there.
Yeah, me too.
Because we got there late, and you just don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You just don't know. We got there August, September-ish of 2015. Game came out in February 2016, so very, very, very late. Yep.
It's alright. I'm good.
Hey, it's Patrick and Nels here.
Hello.
You may have just found some role-playing game artifacts owned by Brian Goodwin, and I thought we could talk about the ways that this character evolved and actually ended up incorporating a lot of elements of our own super nerdy childhoods.
Oh, yes, that's exactly right.
Like Gladius Silva here, it was...
Good old Gladius Silva was actually the very first D&D character I ever made in probably grade 8, maybe grade 9. my very first D&D campaign, some other friends of mine on the speech team, the speech debate team, asked me to join their game, and I was very enamored that they invited me, so I had to make a cool character, so I made a half-elf ranger, and because I was a giant dorko and taking a Latin class at the time, I named him Gladius Silva, which of course means sword of the forest. And I remember when we were initially talking about, like giving Brian kind of this geeky kid personality to contrast with the fact that he's like out in the middle of the wilderness. And I recounted this anecdote about Gladius Silva. Everybody in the office thought it was quite hilarious, and because I had, for my own edification a while back, rescued that character sheet from like my parents' garage and then scanned it, I was able just to send over a PDF of that scanned character sheet, and then it more or less showed up exactly in the game.
Yeah, these are probably your original die rolls from that faded first campaign.
Oh, it was modified just the tiniest bit to like avoid Wizards of the Coast's Dungeons and Dragons copyright. Otherwise, that is literally just my dude. My favorite thing about Brian's proclivity for tabletop RPGs is in Henry's Tower in Two Forks, you can actually find a map that Brian made that's basically like a D&D-ification of the whole area that you're normally in.
Yeah, I ended up drawing that completely based on my own style of drawing when I was Brian's age, and Nels' age. When he was Gladius Silva, I was a city kid who moved to a more like suburban, like woodsy area at that age in my life, and I was so shocked to have all this like actual like woodsy terrain around me that I started mapping it with pencil and paper and drawing little legends just like Brian did, kind of turning the area into more of a mythical landscape. So as soon as this character had gelled, I knew that he would see Two Forks this way, and that cash boxes would be treasure chests and the Boy Scout camp would be a halfling village, and so it kind of just wrote itself.
Yeah, totally. That is our tiny tidbit of geek history in Firewatch by way of Brian Goodwin's Gladius Silva.
Shit.
Still depressing. Give me that tape.
Hi, it's Jake again.
And Chris.
Oh,
hey,
hi,
Chris.
Hey, Jake. This area is one of the only areas in the game where we really let ourselves play up sort of dressing a set in a really overtly theatrical and dramatic way. This is the reveal of Brian's body was such a big moment that we kind of figured we should just go for it entirely.
It was possible to do because I think this is one of the only places in Firewatch where the direction from which the player approaches and the time of day are 100% in our control. Like, you're only ever going to see this scenario under this circumstance. You're going to walk in and sort of the scene will reveal itself from this angle, and there's no chance that the sun is going to be setting in the middle of it or whatever else. So we leaned into it.
I kind of ran with that with the music as well. As you know, if you've listened to all the music in this game, I really didn't lean on big string swells or anything like that. It's very kind of small scale recordings, guitar and electric piano and bass and things like that. I decided to just push this as far as possible. I did one odd thing with the music, which was instead of what you'd expect, which was making the music a really minor dark key, it's actually all in major, which is typically what people associate with happier, more upbeat music, but I pushed the strings far enough that I was hoping it would sort of come around the other side and make something that's kind of, I don't know, poignant.
It's cool. I like it.
Thanks.
Fun fact about this area, if you bring a notable Brian Goodwin possession down into this space, you can set it down next to him using the game's putback system.
One Russian streamer found that live on like the day the game came out.
Yeah, by accident, and it was
amazing.
That guy's stream blew up.
Yep.
I came up with this character, Delilah, and then just thrust her upon you and said, you are going to be Delilah in this video game. I liked working with you on The Walking Dead. You were amazing as Katya. How did that character come to life for you?
Well, actually, I think her name was Alice at first, if you'll recall.
Oh, no, it was.
You remember that?
Oh, it was Alice. Oh, no. What a hilarious thing to have to remember.
I remember getting that email from you about, hey, I'm writing a game, female protagonist, are you in? And I didn't even have to think twice about it. I knew whatever you're working on, whenever, throughout history and time, I will want to be a part of. But then you sent me the sides for Alice, and I got to read about this beautifully flawed but fun and self-engaged woman. And it's one of the things I love about the characters that you write is that they're actual people. They're not tropes. They're not stereotypes of anything. They're full-bodied people. And so I got to dig a little bit into my past and what's made me tick and what would make me take a job in the middle of nowhere and shamelessly flirt with somebody over a walkie-talkie and build her from there. The wonderful thing about Delilah is that there's actually a lot of me in her, meaning like I grew up in Idaho. There are a lot of mountains and wildfires and solitude and stuff like that. I left and I moved to Los Angeles and now I'm surrounded by concrete, but I kind of started out in the same place.
I was integrating so much of the way you speak and the way you like tell a joke or laugh just back into the character. Do you feel like you had to create that stuff to be Delilah, or were you making a concerted effort to sort of like become her?
I think it's a little bit of both. I am a bit of a smartass, and so a lot of the stuff that you wrote really lent itself to that. But you know, as we started getting into the puns, you know, wouldn't you liken to know and stuff like that, I was able to kind of sit back into this woman who just doesn't give a shit. You know, she's out there in the middle of nowhere and having fun because this is her life. And so having that freedom to just be an idiot, it was really freeing. It was a lot of fun.
Where in the gosh darn hell? Where is it? I feel like I'm going batshit cuckoo. You got it. You can't do this to me. You can't do this. Like, is that even? I'm getting it. And you can't stop me. Well, I mean, you can, but you can't. Oh my god, I didn't think to. Oh my god, I didn't think to. I just couldn't. Oh my god. I'm such an idiot. I'm so dumb. That. Oh. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, cool. I'm an idiot. We don't need to talk about this any further.
Hey, it's Chris again.
Hey, it's Sean, and you are in a clearing just beyond the body of a dead elk. And nearby, there's a cassette tape from Dave to Ron. I get them confused the way I get like lots of pairs of characters confused and things that I didn't write.
Yeah.
It's a recording of the song Ol Shoshone as performed and composed by Chris, who's sitting here, but as written by as performed in the fiction of the game by
Ron or Dave.
Based on the lyrics that are discoverable in the outhouse House Rest that were written by Raccoon Carter. I wrote the song as lyrics, and then the whole Ron Dave saga I left for myself till later.
You wrote those lyrics before we actually had the idea of making it a real song in the game.
Exactly right.
Yeah. That whole arc collided with a totally separate design idea, which was to have a like a non-diegetic piece of music that was playing on top of the game at a particular moment. We really liked the idea of that generally. Have an actual song with singing and lyrics in it punctuate a particular moment, but we just never really landed on a song that we thought worked or a particular way to integrate it into the narrative that like wasn't going to stomp on the open nature of the game. And it just we just sort of languished for a while until I guess it was your idea. I can't even remember too.
I remember it being my idea only because I remember being really bashful about it, because it was like I had never written a song before, and I really, really, really wanted you to compose music and record it. But like, I was worried that it was bad, and also like making your friend and coworker do this thing that you wouldn't tell me it was a bad idea. I was worried you wouldn't tell me it was a bad idea.
That's so funny because I read that as like you just didn't really.
Oh really?
I read that as like, oh, you can do this if you want, but I don't know if that's.
No, I just didn't want to like. It felt like so I've read a song and you're gonna perform it.
Right.
Like it just did not feel like I was like, oh. So I was really like feeling that like. Then when you delivered it, I would like start crying. I was like alone and just like got like welled up, and I was like, oh man, that feels good. And I
It
was
was
really
so
excited
fun.
to play the game.
I was really happy to get to do it.
Oh, good.
It was really
I didn't
fun.
know that.
Yeah.
Well, great.
Yeah, worked out.
And it's available on the soundtrack, which you can buy at the store.camposanto.com or from our Steam page.
So I found notes between these two rangers, Ron and Dave. You know them?
Yeah.
Yay!
What do they have to do with anything?
Well, nothing, I don't think. I just found a cassette tape one of them left for the other.
Do you think it could be anything like the tape you have of us?
No, it's definitely not. It's just music, don't worry.
Well, if it's the new Milli Vanilli, it could be just as incriminating.
Hey, Dee.
There you are. I've been worrying my ass off.
I'm taking off for the woods to a place where there ain't no
Might
shade.
want to take a seat.
I've been sitting this entire time. I'm almost always sitting. What's wrong?
The only thing in the cave was a body.
A body? God, what a mess.
Delilah.
Don't need no gal, I'll spruce up for the spruces. Don't need no pal, I'll change my mood up for the mood.
Gotta be fucking kidding me.
Headed off to Ocean
What? I don't...
where the birds and the bees won't
How?
men and war won't
Climbing, I
exist no
think,
more.
was
And there
made to look like a climbing accident.
And if you're wondering
I think
where's
that's
my
just what it was.
Aspen,
He was probably exploring the cave and maybe his rope gave out. Whoever's after us probably didn't even know about it. I'm sorry, Delilah. I'm so sorry.
I'm headed off
He'd
to
be alive if I
Ocean
told someone he was out here.
where the
I
birds
don't
and
know
the
where he'd
bees
be,
won't
but I can assure you it would not be rotting at the bottom of that cave.
and there ain't no
There's
gals to keep
nothing
no
to say.
score.
Hike back.
Headed off to
I think we're leaving tomorrow anyway.
where the elk and the owl.
Well, that was fun. Well, not the Brian part, it's sad, but I have literally never found that game before. I've never found that before in the game. And I've played this game how many times over the years? I literally, like, that's why I was going crazy, because I'm like, yeah, but that's, like, in the green part, and, like, the way the map is, like, you can't go in there. So, but there wasn't another one in the cave, so what the hell's going on here? Well, it just shows that I'm an idiot. Let's go.
Hey, it's Chris again.
Hey, this
Oh,
is
hi,
Ollie
Chris.
again.
Hey, Ollie.
Hey, Chris.
Where you are right now in the game represents by far the biggest change to sort of environmental ambience that we did in the whole game in terms of visuals and audio and everything else. It was just a totally different outdoor kind of vibe.
Yeah, it was really important that the end of the game felt very sort of climactic and exciting. And for the style of this, we actually looked at first-person views of like real forest fighting that had been recorded in Australia, and it was so intense. And the thought of like trying to hit that, like the benchmark had been set, right? So we had to try and get something that captured that feeling. I think we were all surprised by how close it got in the end.
Yeah, for sure. It was. I was really impressed.
Yeah, it was amazing how close we got to the original vision, given without special casing any tools. Like the tools that we had enabled us to get this effect like very quickly, and it was something I'd been putting off for a long time because I was really scared of being able to deliver something that felt, exciting. And then I remember I was bringing everyone into the room and going, guys, I think we got it.
Yeah,
I think
that's
we
awesome.
did it. Yeah.
On the audio system, I did have to special case a bunch of stuff, but what ended up happening was, because of the needs of this day, I ended up redoing the way audio ambience worked for the whole game to be able to support dropping elements in and out, which ended up being really useful retroactively for the earlier days when I went back and changed those. So, yeah, great.
Forget it.
Be safe, Henry.
I'm sure it's fine, but I know where I'm going at least. To the point, I don't even need the tracker thing, which is getting on my damn nerves because I can't see the fucking... Okay, whatever. So yeah, that's just Shitty Bus gonna get me killed hell. Just making sure there's nothing else blinking ahead of me because those two I have to... I actually know how to get to those. So that and the lake. Okay, good. But hey, I mean, the good news is we're almost done with this. Like, yes, Firewatch is not a big or like super long game to begin with, but the fact that, again, assuming you guys missed that first video, I talked about how my old
I think I'm getting close.
Alright, well, I just got word that they are coming to get us. My place.
You sound worried.
No, it's just...
Brian?
Yeah?
I'll coordinate with the evac team and let you know when to head towards the tram. It's north. Far. Past where you found that cut back in May. There's an emergency tram out there that will let you hike to the rendezvous point at my lookout.
Anyway, all I was saying is because of what happened with the hacked account and then the deleted videos and the blah blah blah. I had played through Firewatch once, mostly. I mean, there was like an hour left of the game when everything went shithouse. And then I replayed through the game again for this channel, and now I'm doing it again for this audio tour. So it like...
We're coming up on the end here, Jake.
It's true, we are.
Yep. You are about to hear, or have currently heard, the voice of Ned Goodwin, which we didn't know we were going to put into the game for a long, long time until we played it. Because originally it was like a note he left you.
We went back and forth early on, too. There was a moment, I think, where we said maybe one of the last conversations you'll have is with Ned Goodwin himself, who's off in the woods. Maybe you'll pick up the radio in his tower. Talked ourselves off that pretty quick, and then yeah, maybe he leaves you a note, sort of a confessional note.
But then we also sort of bounced off the note because you would find it and it just didn't have the oomph, and it didn't have the sort of cinematic nature of a conversation. And then we went, okay, well, is the response to that to like put Ned Goodwin in the scene? You're gonna meet the guy? Like, thought about that for a minute. And then we said, well, you're gonna talk to him, and like, what are you gonna say to him? And then we actually found the middle ground, which was a recorded note, which is like was really great. It was like the thing that it never occurred to us because we had written notes and conversations. The idea of just essentially having an audio log did not like jump out at us for a few weeks. And then it was like, oh wait, you have a tape player.
He's left you recordings of yourself before. It seemed like
it all connected, and I'm really happy with where we landed with it. And also, Mac Brandt is the voice of Ned Goodwin. We had so many auditions, and this happens all the time. You get a lot of very similar auditions, people trying to play someone a certain way. And then Mac put a little bit of a, like, kind of an East Coast accent on it, and just...
I remember not being sure about it at first, but you and Chris pushed for Mac, and I'm really glad that we did.
Yeah, he was just a tight...
This is a weird, goofy detail of just the sorts of things that you imagine in your head, but Goodwin leaving you this tape has meant that for me, my mental image of Ned Goodwin is that he has no one to talk to, but that like when he left the Shoshone, it was like with a backpack full of just tapes that he's recorded to himself, which obviously doesn't exist and the game doesn't say that, but now like the existence of that tape just painted that strange character detail into my brain. Now that it's on this commentary is definitely
purely canon. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Sean.
So we are here in Ned Goodwin's survival bunker. Something you'll notice, dear player, is all of his like journalistic writings and logs are all over the walls, and you may or may not have read them. And you may or may not have read them because Firewatch isn't really a game that makes you passively digest written materials, like a game like Gone Home, or a game that tells all of its story through logs and journals you find around the world. And that was kind of a design challenge, as a lot of this game was, because so much, when you pick up an important note in Firewatch, Henry will sort of react, and then when you tell Delilah about it, he'll condense it down to a sentence or two about what the point of it is, and then they'll have a conversation about it. But that's not really on the table here, because the helicopter's coming and Henry and Delilah are sort of a little bit further apart. We kind of walked ourselves into a challenge of being able to check all the boxes about like who exactly was Ned and what exactly did he have his hand in, and then presenting you a scene that is completely passive to digest, which was difficult, I think.
Yeah, and part of the reason we have to do that is because in games that really lean on you reading a bunch of text throughout the world, generally speaking, those protagonists are either silent or they have prescribed responses to things. Our game is all the dialogue really is contingent on your choices, and so we can't assume you actually read all the words on the page. We basically had to make a call for each note whether, okay, we're just going to let this player read it or not, or we're making the call that Henry explicitly read it in the fiction and he will state its contents or make explicit acknowledgement of like the useful information inside of it. And we just had to, and it just didn't, as you say, just in Goodwin's bunker, it didn't seem to make sense to require all of that. So we basically said, okay, regardless of what Henry does, we have to allow for the player to absorb all this stuff, and like we will put all the information in the story there. Like it's all there if you want to read it. You don't technically have to.
Okay.
It is Nels once again.
And Jane is back.
And we're here outside of Goodwin's bunker is what we ended up calling it. This is kind of the weird hideaway that Goodwin has been living in for the past 4 years, which some people may initially think, how could someone do that? That's unrealistic. But actually, we mentioned this briefly earlier in the commentary as well, but there was this man named Christopher Thomas Knight, who is also known as the Maine Hermit or the Last True Hermit. And he was this dude who lived in the woods in central Maine for like over 30 years.
Wow, 30?
30 years, not 4, 30. To the point where he became like a folk tale that kids in the region were like, oh, my mom said we have to be behaved or the hermit will come take us away in the night. And everyone stuff would go disappearing from people's houses or whatever, but almost everybody just thought it was, local naughty teens or whatever leaning into the legend. But there was actually this dude out in the middle of nowhere, and he had this insanely robustly stocked bunker. There's this great GQ piece all about it that had like diagrams of how he set up his bunker and where his different supplies were, and that was like a major inspiration for this area.
Part of why he could survive for so long was that he would keep raiding nearby homes and campsites, to get his supplies, and then he would hide all his trash basically in these like trash holes, I guess. So when we were designing this space, I was told, just like look at this article and diagram for some inspiration, and just make sure to have like piles of trash around. But the funny thing is, actually, it was kind of hard as a environment artist to just make a pile of trash. Okay, if I have to make a pile of trash, I now have to do the mental homework of thinking, well, what exactly could he have taken from where?
Exactly.
Because even though it's just a pile of trash, but like what is actually in the trash and what I'm going to model kind of does need to make sense and needs to tell a story of like, you can't just have random like TV sets, for example.
Yeah, or like a big old car tire or something.
Yeah, like that, he wouldn't have stolen something like that.
And then the actual shape of the bunker itself, that was more based on these old Native American structures that are actually in Point Reyes, California. Jake, I think, had seen them or maybe been up there or something. But there were this tribe of Miwok Native Americans who built like these underground bunker smokehouse type things. The winters in Maine may be a bit cold, but obviously they don't compare in the least to the high altitude Wyoming national forests. So in all honesty, Goodwin probably should have froze to death like winter 1. Ended up way more like Christopher McCandless than the main hermit, but poetic license.
Yeah. And the cool thing, I guess, about this space too is if you go all the way to the end where there is a big window, if you look out there, you can see Henry's tower and also Delilah's tower. That's actually where both of those towers are. We didn't cheat it at all. So Jake did a really good job picking that spot for this bunker.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite moments where you get out to that opening and you realize that like, not only has he been listening in, but he's literally been able to kind of watch you two the whole time. You can kind of imagine in your head, like as Goodwin was listening on his conversation, he was like looking back and forth between the two towers as Henry and Delilah were talking.
Yeah.
It's a very wonderful voyeuristic moment.
What a creepy dude.
They're here, but they're making rounds. They'll come back.
Hey, Chris here.
And Nels, hello.
Hey, Nels.
Hey, buddy.
So you probably just went to Goodwin's bunker and got the message from him and learned about what happened and uncovered a huge part of the story. But as it turns out, you actually don't have to go there at all.
Not in the least. The only thing you actually have to do to kind of keep the game going is listen to that cassette he leaves you.
Right.
After you snatch that cassette, there's kind of that dangling rope, but you can just never climb up that rope.
Mm-hmm.
You can just kind of be like, I'm going to evacuate now. Goodbye.
The only reason that's the case is because we literally could not think of any good, reasonable, convincing excuse to force you to go up there.
Yeah.
One of the big challenges in this game from a design standpoint was that it's one big connected world, and there are a lot of times where we just can't really force you to go somewhere and do a thing.
Or if we did, it would just be absolutely terrible. Like, we could technically allow you to walk all the way over to Delilah's evacuation tram. You get there and she says, "Oh, we're not ready to go yet." And then you would have to, like, walk all the way back to where you were, and then climb around Goodwin's bunker, and then magically she says, "Oh, it is actually time to go now." And that would be awful.
And so, because we eventually determined, all right, we have to allow for the player not going through there, that meant Nels and I had to then tackle the other hilarious and difficult problem of making sure that the game and the story didn't break for those players who do never find Goodwin's bunker.
Yeah.
And that was a very complicated and frustrating task, I would say.
Well, technically, you can grab the cassette, listen to it, and then not even tell Delilah about it.
Yeah, there are a lot of different states you can be, conversation states you can be in between getting that tape and getting to Delilah's tower. There's anywhere from only getting the bare minimum conversations because you already exhausted most of it at Goodwin's bunker, all the way up to needing all of that stuff to be recapped on the way because you didn't actually go to the place.
Yeah.
And we had to make sure that all of those possible player sort of actions and combinations of actions all worked and all made for a logical game where the story actually concluded and information didn't just magically appear out of nowhere.
Yeah, there were so many different permutations of it. It's like, okay, we'd finally, like, hog tie one of them, and then one of us would be playing the game and be like, but wait, what if you don't do this? Then we have to be like, ugh, okay, so what do we do if you do this, but not that, but this? Okay, we have that one covered.
And then you go this direction rather than that direction.
Right, because that's the other thing is, like, walking to Delilah's, there are so many different paths you could technically take. We had to, like, slap down just, like, 15 different triggers probably to just catch all the different, like, went this way but then looped over that way. It was a horrible mess.
Good times.
Firewatch.
Times indeed. It definitely sounds fun. No, after hearing them say that, I am glad they did that, though, because that is, like, a pet peeve thing I have in games. Because, like, yeah, now I can see it. I can imagine going all the way to where we need to go, and if you chose, for whatever reason, not to climb up that rope, if Delilah was just like, oh, sorry, can't leave yet, you left something, or like, you can't go unless you do X, it's like, you're really gonna make me go all the way back there now, game, for this bullshit? You're really gonna make me, alright, well. I mean, sometimes I get it. Sometimes, it makes sense. But it's like, for this game, had that happened, especially with the way the rest of the game is, it would have been like, this feels slightly out of place. And why does Delilah suddenly sound like a robot?
So, Rich, as you know, we struggled so hard to find you. To find the voice of Henry.
And I was here all along.
We're just right there in the valley waiting for us. And you were discovered, basically not discovered, but contacted via Twitter.
Those two things are synonymous.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because I don't think I knew who Henry was until you read for the character. And then I went like, oh, of course. Did you feel like you had to bring something out of the ordinary to him or something created? Or was it more of an amalgam of the words on the page and who you are as a person?
I think the latter more than the former. I mean, I think that Henry and I differ chiefly in that I would probably classify him as an introvert, and I would classify myself as an extrovert. And so I think pretty much flipping merely that switch did that for me, and that coupled with the words that made pretty clear what this guy was going through. And I think too, it probably did not hurt that I was recording this thing, in a tiny little upright coffin, basically, where every wall is bumping my body in some way. So there was a feeling of, even though this game takes place out in the woods, there was certainly a feeling of isolation that probably didn't hurt as we were recording. I'm going to bounce that back to you and say that I think that the writing was pretty clear on who Henry was, and I just tried to sound like that guy, I guess.
This was your first voice acting gig, really, right?
Yeah, my first video game for sure. This came right at a time when I was trying to get into voiceover.
Does the type of work that is so different than being on stage or on camera, does it fulfill you in the same way? Do you find is it tickle sort of a different pleasure sensor in your brain, or?
I wouldn't say it's exactly the same, but it's certainly a different part of my brain. But I would say it's at least as fulfilling as anything I've ever done on camera, because there's sort of a freedom in the booth that isn't there if you're on camera. There's a lot of sort of, you can't move too far that way, and you can't block your other actor's light, and there's a lot of technical stuff you have to keep in your brain that has no bearing on what you're doing here. I mean, the most technical thing I have to worry about is that I don't get so loud that it clips the sound. Otherwise, that's kind of it. So I have free, full acting available range, and that's an exciting thing, and in a lot of ways more exciting to me than on-camera work.
Actually, didn't know that, so props to him.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Sean.
I don't know about you, but I get a lot of email and tweets about people really, really wanting Delilah to be in the tower at the end.
I hear about that a fair amount myself.
And I am really, really happy with the performances of Henry, or Rich and Cissy, here in the canyon when she says there's a helicopter here and it's ready for me to get on it.
Yeah, me too.
And if you're wondering why we ended up making the creative decision we made, there's sort of two things that I know Chris and I spoke a lot about. One is Delilah is simply not the type of person to wait for anyone. And Chris did a really good job with me just sort of painting a portrait of her emotional state and what it would feel like to be waiting for this guy to show up after a really, really tragic thing has happened, and then just sit in this tower and wait for a helicopter, thinking about this dead kid and how messed up their entire summer had been.
Yeah.
And the dread.
You wrote that almost directly.
Yeah, and that's what I did. You basically painted that portrait for me, and I went, oh, well, she's just gonna say that.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit here in the shadow of a dead boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I went yep, all right, thank you for giving me that. And then alternatively, Henry's wanted nothing more than to be made to feel better over the past 5-10 years. Definitely the past 5, definitely the past 1. And that feeling of disappointment that you feel when you open the door and she's not there, even though you ask her to stay, and you can hear how badly Henry wants her to stay in Rich's performance, in his voice. I wanted that feeling to go into the player, that level of disappointment. And then for some players to think, man, but how disappointed would I really be if I was him? And obviously we can't make you think that stuff. But if we do, then I feel like the story has been successful in communicating the sort of the emotional payload that it set out to
Sorry,
provide.
there's something in my tooth.
There you go.
Yeah. As for the Delilah to stay thing, I kind of made my opinions known on that, in my actual playthrough. I know why people... I still don't know why that thing is frozen. According to that thing, at least from what I was able to see, because again, this stupid thing was in my way, yeah, there's only 2 left, so I'm hoping, because I didn't see anything else on that map, which, by the way, yes, I tried. I can't bring up the map anymore, because it's not for over here, so...
Hi, it's Ollie again.
Better be in the tower!
So this is Delilah's tower. Funny fact, this was one of the first things we concepted and built in the game. We always knew that the game would end with Delilah's tower, and I think we all liked the idea of the title screen being Delilah's house. That was one of the first things we did as a sort of test. But it wasn't until closer to the end of the game that we really thought about what Delilah's tower would be like on the inside.
Yeah. And by that point, we kind of, we were very well acquainted with all sorts of towers. And so I don't even think we had a big concept about it. We just kind of went in and went through all our references, and we just decided, we should have this kind of ceiling and like different cabinets.
Yeah, it should feel familiar, but sort of different enough that it feels like a Delilah's place. And we thought about all the things that the player learns about Delilah across the
that was
game,
really fun.
and try and communicate that through things, but also maybe some things that you don't know about Delilah that are interesting to find out.
I remember when I was just making props for her space, that I would ask Sean, hey, like, if she were just eating a snack, what would it be? And Sean would just say, peanut butter and apples. And I would just ask Sean, what kind of slippers would she have? And, we would just have to think about, through the props, tell sort of a little bit of, character of who Delilah is, like what kind of shoes she wear would just be the fun kind of things to think about.
Interesting fact also that the behind the mask of the firefighter who collects Henry at the end is actually Henry's own face, because it's the only face that we had modeled in the game. I really like the idea that potentially someone would have noticed and thought it was this insane twist.
Third ending.
Yeah, third ending. Henry sees himself and realizes that it was all a dream. Henry died in the cave-in on the way into the.
He rescues himself.
Yeah, exactly. That's so good.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Sean.
It's the last scene of the game.
Yeah, this took some getting.
This was very difficult.
Yeah.
Something you would say in story meetings all the time, which was, I was really afraid of writing the scene, and I was really afraid of the end of the game, which I had never experienced in my career.
Yeah, we went up to the wire.
You would say to me, oh, you're going to feel it out when you write it. And you would say that, you're sort of like, and you'll figure that out on the page when you're working, when we were trying to really talk about the beats of this last scene. And I would go like, okay. And some direction that you gave me that was really valuable was just the muted nature of this scene, because everything that has been said has already been said, and there's sort of nothing left to do. And you get to a point in your life where that is true often. But movies and games never really explore what that space feels like.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to choose to do that, to write the not exciting thing, which I think is why the helicopter shows up, to be perfectly honest.
Yep.
We needed something to counterbalance this feeling of well, the story is just over.
Yeah.
They're not gonna get to see each other because that's just the way it goes. So how do we make this feel big and final? We better pay for a big helicopter and a guy's hand you grab and everything. And then to tie it all together, we decided very, very down to the wire that you were going to write music over the top of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it totally works.
Yeah.
But what was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was very stressful because writing that music was literally in the last couple of days before content lock. But I think much like the writing of the scene, it just, I think I had just sort of absorbed so much of everything that had led up to that point that it actually ended up being an easier process than I thought it was going to be. As for the ending as a whole, I mean, we talked through how this game was going to end so many times, and on a literal plot level, it actually changed a fair amount in terms of how the mystery gets resolved, all the sort of background information that's feeding into Henry and Delilah's last conversation. And I remember something that was really important to me was as much as possible, I would like the ambiguity and the sort of meaning of the ending and of all the events that have transpired to be in not in the literal what happened, but in the why did any of it happen? Just in the sense of why does anything happen? I remember that was something that I thought was really potentially powerful about the way this game concluded. I think you got. I don't know if that means anything to anyone else, but I think that you got that in the writing, and it was very. I was very happy with how it ended up, even though it was a very
thanks so much for
contentious-
you through the entire process, 2-year process of trying to write this game, were just a constant checkpoint for me because when you're writing, it's a very lonely process. It's very, very lonely, and to drift off of the tone of the thing you're working on with the other people is very seductive. Hey guys, we're doing this totally new, different thing. This scene happens a totally different way now because I had a brilliant idea last night.
Yeah, that happened a bunch of times.
Yeah, that that is a very easy thing to do, but I always felt like you were able to ground me back to where we were headed in a way that I found very comforting. And I thank you very much.
I appreciate it. I thought it worked out. I'm really happy. For something that so many people like have very mixed feelings about, I almost would like more.
I'm sorry about the last little bit there. If it helps you at all, I couldn't hear it either. Give it to me!
Hi, say this again. Hey, it's Jake. So now we're going to talk about the Firewatch. Which, if for anyone who isn't aware of this, if you dilly-dally after the final conversation with Delilah, then the helicopter will just leave without you, and that is fully supported with its own animation content and so on and so forth. If I remember correctly, it was essentially a request from you to me, Jake. Is that how you remember it?
I think that Sean and Chris and I all wanted it to happen. Once we realized the helicopter pilot was there, given that all of Firewatch is sort of, or not all of it, but quite a lot of Firewatch is predicated on the idea that if you don't do anything, that inaction is action. Like if you let a conversation time out, it just times out. It seems ridiculous that a helicopter pilot would wait for a crazy person for this long. So it seemed like a fun and accurate Easter egg to let him just totally abandon you. I don't know. My favorite ending of Firewatch is the one where the helicopter pilot flies away and the player raises their camera at the last second and snaps a picture of the helicopter leaving them behind, because the story in that credit sequence is just totally weird. The Henry that gets left behind, like, is he alive? Does he go off and run into the woods and become Ned Goodwin on his own? I don't know.
Tons of weird, quite complex stuff goes into the very end when you understand the systems, because like building that in terms of the scripting logic is pretty complicated, but it's like I was at my most competent at scripting events. So it just slipped in like half a day near the very, very, very end.
Also, a game development trick that everyone should learn is that if it's the very last thing that happens in the game, it can be as crazy as you want, because that game is unloading itself the moment it's done. Who cares what mess that thing leaves behind? Your game is erased immediately afterwards. So just go nuts.
I'm very pleased. we did that.
Yeah, same. That's the end of the Firewatch audio tour. Thank you very much for playing along and listening to all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah! But what is Firewatch?
That was it. We did it. That was the whole thing just now.
Okay, well, I am getting out of here as quick as I can, because I'm still going to have to monkey with it anyway, but yeah, I got a copyright claim on my last video, and it was for that damn song at the end there, so, thank you, people behind Firewatch, but great game. As I said in the other video, this is literally one of my favorite games of all time. Not one of my favorite indie games or smaller titles. I love this story so much, and this world, and the characters, and the dialogue, and the writing, and everything. Ow. Didn't need to hit my headset there. But with that being said, that was the Firewatch audio tour, and you know what? I don't know how that was to watch, if any of you guys cared. Plus, there was a couple of, missteps on my part, not realizing the thing with the subtitles or what the hell was going on there. The couple of times, there was the one cassette that I got wrong because I clicked the button and it stopped to the one prematurely. I mean, to be fair, based on the timer, it looked like there was 10 seconds left, so it's not like I cut it off at the halfway point. And, well, again, I'm still salty, very, very salty about the one that I left on the intro thing there, because I'm honestly 90% sure I know what it was. I think it's where I usually get hurt, where the trail cave-in was, and the only reason why I think that is because it was when I went there the one day, which I think was day one, and it was yeah, you gotta come back on a different day, or this is the wrong day. You can't come here. This is bad. This is the wrong choice, time and place, and blah, 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 blah. I don't recall having to go back there for any other tapes, so That's like the only one that sticks out to me as a possibility. Like, I might play this again in my spare time just to see if I can't find that one thing, but like, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. I wasn't even planning on getting most of them anyway. I was like, yeah, I'll get the ones that are in like my direct path and we'll go from there. But then after a while, I was like, you know, I'm having fun just collecting all of these, so why not? As I said, I've always been a behind-the-scenes guy. I've always loved special features. I've always loved seeing how things are made. I'm not even talking about video games, movies, TV shows, even a damn show like how it's made. Sorry, I only thought of it because I kind of like just said it. But, like, I don't know. I've always been fascinated just by how things are put together and, like, hearing them talk about how long it took them to write the script, how, you know, the day-night cycle worked, and, like, I could literally, the first time I played this, I literally just ran around those buttons over and over and just watched the thing spaz out. But them talking about, like, the invisible wire that they put for, like, if Henry steps over it, Delilah just radios you and starts talking about mumbo-jumbo. Like, the whole thing. I'm not trying to sound like a broken record here, but it's interesting. It's fascinating. I enjoyed it. Again, I don't know how this felt, or how this was to watch. Probably boring to a lot of people, but as for me personally, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm glad I did do it, because I'm gonna be honest, there was a part of me for a good 2-3 hours before I actually hit record where I was like, you know I said I was gonna do it, but I don't know how that's gonna come across as a video. I don't know. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it regardless, so why not just record it? Because I was like, yeah, if I record something else, I'm just gonna play it in my spare time anyway, because I haven't gone through the audio tour in years. Like, I think I went through it like twice in the past, but even then, it was like after my original playthrough, and I think I did it once again in like 2019, 2020, not entirely sure there, but regardless of the situation, I'm gonna put Firewatch to bed for now, because I played through the game properly, and then I did the audio tour. If I pick it up again for any reason whatsoever in the future, it's either gonna be because they out of nowhere are like, Firewatch 2 is coming out. Firewatch 2, everybody! Firewatch 2 is coming out. Or if, for whatever reason, I decide to do the Henry's a piece of shit playthrough, because that's... I've done it quite a few times, and, like, even though there's a specific way I try to play this every single time, you can make Henry an asshole. Like, say what you will about some of the choices not really mattering, or this or that, or like, in the grand scheme of things, even if you pick this option or this option, the game plays out the exact same. Therefore, you know, people want to talk about the butterfly effect, but it doesn't actually matter, because you see, I don't care. This game has replay value to me because the dialogue within and of itself is so genuine and authentic, and just the way the voice actors are and everything, that when you do go through the game and you either choose to ignore Delilah or you choose to just be a colossal piece of shit, I don't know, considering just how likable Henry is for the most part if you pick specific options. Like, I wouldn't even say necessarily nice, he's just, at least to me, again, anyway, he's likable. So, to be like, yeah, by the way, Brian died. Oh, and it's all your fault, by the way. Like, Jesus, dude! What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? But, yeah. That is gonna do it for Firewatch, so thank you guys so much for watching enough. I'll see you guys in future videos. So, later!